¿Qué?
Oh no.
¿Es negro?
Oh no.
¿Es negro?
Hey, they may beat the shit out of me, but I guarantee you they'll cut your black ass right up.
If you a badass, you know, it's amazing I fought a gun and a badge to take some guys.
Bullshit attitude and experience is what gets you through. Come on.
Come on and experience some of my bullshit.
Not a very popular place with the brothers.
My kind of place. Always like country boys. They're sure as hell don't like you.
I'll do. Yeah. I'd like something to drink, preferably some vodka. Best have a black Russian. Look at here. Never seen so many backwards ass country fucks in my life. Sick just to be in here.
This is our place. I don't give a shit what the fuck your badge says, nigga.
Oh, you're a big tough country faggot, ain't you? Put your country ass down. I don't like white people. I hate rednecks. You people are rednecks. It means I'm enjoying this shit. You know what I am? I'm your worst fucking nightmare, man. I'm a nigga with a badge. That means I got permission to kick your fucking ass whenever I feel like it. Well, look, Hoss. You start running a respectable business, and I won't have to come in here and hassle you every night. You know what I mean? And I want the rest of you cowboys to know something. There's a new sheriff in town. And his name is Reggie Hammond. Y'all be cool. Right on.
Going around the streets with an overdressed, charcoal-colored loser like you. You're just a spear chucker with a number stenciled on the back of his prison fatigues. Let me explain one thing to you, nigger. I fight 30.
Hey, Reggie, you want to go for a ride in the Cadillac?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Look, man, I've been having a f***ed up day, and the last thing I want to see was you.
I see.
Hello, my fellow Kafir Goy. How are you today? How are you holding up? It's good to see Give the Gospel of Jesus in chat. Always good to see her. Yeah. Yes, I got some. Thank you. That does it tastes quite strong, but it does a trick, but it doesn't last. You know, I'm just pretty much do meds and sleep until my next dentist appointment. But I'll be okay. I'll survive. Yeah, it's just frustrating that it's taken so long to resolve, especially when I have so many things to do, and this is interfering with that. But, you know, there's worse things in the world. But yeah, so finally, I know I've said, I don't know, maybe a half dozen to a dozen times, I will get back to the Eddie Murphy series. Thank you, Gil. But yeah, I mean, what can I say? I'm just so sick of this racism stuff. I think most of us are. Those of us who aren't, you know, racist. But But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, because mass media keeps pushing it on us and it is being used as a tool to divide us, destroy us, it's got to be addressed. And when we do that, I think all of us, I'm speaking to content creators here, we need to keep in mind that we don't slip into that dichotomy and slip into the dark side, so to speak, give into the passions and start focusing on the wrong thing. In other words, start getting angry for this dichotomy, black versus white, or black versus of color these days. Yes, amen. We make sure we maintain our focus on the messenger. The adage is don't kill a messenger. Well, in this case, I'm definitely disagreeing with that. It's the messenger that's the problem. So make sure we're not, doing the anti-woman thing or anti-black or of color thing, but rather focusing on the people that are doing it via mass media, particularly mass media, but of course, there's people behind the scenes that are pushing this rhetoric. Jay Dyer does a great job. He takes the academic approach. I've started watching him maybe, I don't know, 21, 22, somewhere around there. I don't know, I guess through YouTube. But yeah, he takes the academic approach. He talks about all these organizations that are behind it. Again, he does cite his sources and so on. He proves he's the one that introduced me to the Project Mockingbird and MK Ultra thing, which sounds whack, but it's declassified documents. You can see for yourselves. In fact, let me go, now that I mentioned them again, share for you PDFs. You can see for yourselves that the U.S. government was actually brainwashing its own citizens, which is no small thing. Okay, that's in chat. And let me share this one too. Yeah, again, these are declassified federal governments. I'm sharing with you now the PDF format for your convenience. You can also, as I say, do your own research. These days, we just basically click our cell phone buttons, and hopefully we get some vetted website that's not censored, that's not biased or part of the problem. My pleasure. Yeah. So basically, I mean, I've taken the judge by the fruits approach, see for yourself approach, the quantitative approach, academically speaking. So I'm basically taking the actual samples, the actual offenses, if you will, and sharing them with you so you can see for yourselves, including timestamps for the most part. I don't always do that. That's a long process. And to be completely honest with you, watching movies for me now, it's just it's a major task. It takes me a full week, if not more, just to watch one movie because, one, especially the newer ones, they're just so saturated with things. But I'm also I'm also aware of it, so I catch a lot of things that are being done. So it takes a while for me to. I mean, I'm basically stopping every 5 minutes, if not more, depending on the movie, just to document an instance of something. But also, I'm completely emotionally drained. Just like I said, it took me 3 months or more, maybe, just to get back to this Eddie Murphy series. I mean, it takes its toll on me spiritually. So, and to be frank, I don't do what I'm supposed to. I don't stick to my prayer rule and fast and do these things like I should be. Go to church like I should be. And therefore, yeah, because of that, there's a void, and I'm therefore more susceptible to these things. And so that's a problem for me. And, I need to correct that, but I need to correct that statement for a while now, to be honest with you. But I'm working on it. I'm getting a little better. I need to get a lot better though. Stat. At any rate, so yeah, let's get back to this nonsense, this racism thing. Again, last time I was talking about how disillusioned I was with Eddie Murphy. I was up until recently thinking that the 2013 award ceremony, where some of his peers were criticizing him for not giving black people enough opportunity because he kept doing multiple roles himself, like, the Nutty Professor and so on. But so I felt like these new woke movies, reboots that he was doing were under that kind of peer pressure. But now that I'm looking at his early films from the very beginning, I'm seeing that he was just really, a stack of turd. Forgive me for my English here from the very beginning. And it kills me to say that because, again, it's hard for me not to idolize the guy, but I'm over it. But yeah, so today we're going to look at 48 Hours. There's been murmurs that they're going to do a third, or wants to do a reboot, a third one. But I haven't seen any official announcements for that, so I can't speak to that. Just, spread the rumors. But there may be a third one coming up. I cringe at the idea, especially seeing the other reboots that he's made and just how quote unquote woke they are, how prejudiced and fascist and misleading and divisive and all these things. And so the third 48 Hours, what would that look like? I mean, in the year, let's say he puts it out 2025. And I'm thinking of the song now. The year 2525. Anyway, but yeah, no. So yeah, what would that look like these days? So it's frightful to think about it. Hey, oh, what's up, Slim? Yeah. Yeah, again, I'm coming to that realization. And I was raised by mass media. I'm one of its biggest victims. I'm a product of it. I'm embarrassed to admit a lot of my mindset, the things I did in life, were crafted by mass media. As an adult looking at these things, it was just so, it was some of the things that I watched, I was like I was in a cold sweat because I was like, oh my God, I've actually based my entire life on a movie line. It's scary and embarrassing to admit, but it's a reality for many of us, including myself. It's something I combat to this day, especially as much time I invest in mass media. I mean, the internet is definitely is a bigger problem, but also when I do these reviews, when I do this research on these movies. By the way, I'm supposed to be doing another one on mass media and how it promotes Islam with Lloyd DeYoung. I was supposed to do it last Friday. I had to cancel because of the tooth thing. I wasn't sure. In retrospect, I regret canceling. I probably could have pulled it off. I thought they were going to drill and do a root canal and all that, but he's postponing it, which I wish he wouldn't. I wish he would just took care of it last week. But anyway, but yeah, I might be doing it this week. I'm not sure. He asked me about it, but he hasn't followed up on the time and all that. So I don't know. We'll see. But that should be good. Yeah, I mean, just there's a book / documentary called Real Bad Arabs, and in the early 2000s, this guy came out and just really pushed this propaganda of homophobia and all that, and went through all these movies that are supposed to be racist and slandering Arabs. I mean, he plays a straw man, destructive stuff, begs the question. I mean, this guy is just a real piece of work. So I'm definitely going to be doing my own series in addition to whatever I do with Lloyd DeYoung on that guy. Just expose it. All right, I'm just looking at the chat. You guys are a trip. Yeah, so I mean, let's take a look at the very first clip that I did in the cold start here. I can't break it up, so I have to watch it all the way through. And I put your children to the side. There's a lot of offensive language here. I didn't bleep out. My apologies for that. But this is from the original 48 Hours, and I think this really sums up the essence of the movie, what it's about. So here you go. Buckle up. This is pretty harsh.
They may beat the shit out of me, but I guarantee you they'll cut your black ass right up.
If you a badass, it's amazing I fought a gun in the bag to take some guys.
Bullshit attitude and experience is what gets you through. Come on.
Come on and experience some of my bullshit.
Not a very popular place with the brothers.
My kind of place. Always like country boys. They sure as hell don't like you.
How do? Yeah. I'd like something to drink, preferably some vodka. Best have a black Russian. Look at here. I've never seen so many backwards-ass country fucks in my life. Sick just to be in here.
This is our place. I don't give a shit what the fuck your badge says, nigga.
Oh, you're a big tough country faggot, ain't you? Get your country ass down. I don't like white people. I hate rednecks. You people are rednecks. It means I'm enjoying this shit. You know what I am? I'm your worst fucking nightmare, man. I'm a nigga with a badge. I mean, I got permission to kick your fucking ass whenever I feel like it.
Well, look, Hoss, you start running a respectable business, and I won't have to come in here and hassle you every night. You know what I mean?
And I want the rest of you cowboys to know something. There's a new sheriff in town. And his name is Reggie Hammond. Y'all be cool. Right on.
Going around the streets with an overdressed, charcoal-colored loser like you. You're just a spear chucker with a number stenciled on the back of his prison fatigues. Let me explain one thing to you, nigger. I fight 30.
All right. Yep. That was the original 48 Hours, 1982. Nick Nolte was one of my favorite actors. And, of course, Eddie Murphy. So, yeah, there's a lot to unpackage there. The whole line, there's a lot of lines in that one. The bartender telling them, you know, after he asks for vodka, he says, do you want a black Russian instead of white Russian? Ha, ha, ha. It's funny. There's a group that does some really good discussions. You know, I think maybe some of them take it a little too far. They're all black, and I'm not. But I still feel it's okay for me to say that, despite what mass media wants to push me into thinking. But yeah, you know, that being said, I have my moments too. If anybody watches any of my shorts, you know, I don't mind pushing an envelope, especially when it comes to Islam. But yeah, we just need to be mindful we're not being part of the problem, and that's something I fear, I hate, I hope I'm not doing myself. But yeah, so at any rate, they talk a lot about the communist influence. Jay Dyer talks a lot more about like things like the Frankfurt School and so on. These guys are strictly talking about communism. So, and they have this, they're calling it the Black Church, which I'm not completely on board with. I don't really care for that, to be honest with you, that categorization. And I'm not trying to be libtarded here, but I really don't. For them to do that, it's kind of putting skin tone on Christianity. And I know that's not their intent. They're trying to expose the communist influence that's even infiltrated the Black Church, and that's their point. I just wish they would phrase it in a different way that clarifies that. So, but yeah, just do some great work. And, you know, yeah, that little scene about, hey, how about a black Russian? We don't usually think of blacks in communism in the same sentence because mass media never portrays them that way. But through those guys, Chad Jackson was a link reader to Teach 'em Chuck. Is two of them that I would recommend you check out. They're both, I don't agree with everything they say, but they do a lot of great work exposing this degradative influence behind the scenes. So, and of course, they talk about the civil rights movement and all that, and all these things. It's been an eye-opener for me. Again, some more disillusionment. Some of the stuff you guys might have already heard of, so it might not be new to you, but some of the stuff I'm pretty sure you haven't. But it's definitely worth checking out. So, yeah, the other thing was, of course, the use of the N-word. That's something we definitely don't hear these days. But then again, we do. Teach 'em Chuck does it. I mean, in fact, one of my shorts has him talking about the house nigga and that mentality. There's NFL players I was fans of. One of them, Muhsin Muhammad, was likely Muslim, but also Steve Smith out of California, a thug. Repeatedly punched teammates, but was never properly reprimanded for it because he was a superstar, and superstars can get away with anything. Oh, is that a real thing? I didn't even know that, Slim. Okay, I thought it was just a line in a movie. I mean, I'm familiar with the White Russian, but I didn't realize there was a Black Russian too. Anyway, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, what's the other stuff you guys saw in there? Basically, the whole redneck and white people and, you know, hillbillies and, you know, this kind of thing. That's actually something that we see throughout media, including to this day, and it's something that nobody criticizes, and I mean nobody. In fact, a celebrity by the name of Jeff Foxworthy has made nice chunk of change from exploiting that type of racism. Uh, how do you know you're a redneck? Is the line that he used, the brand. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of that myself because, and I've been guilty because of the conditioning, even on these streams, I've caught myself doing that accidentally, associating an entire group of people to automatically be rednecks, like, for example, the South. And so, yeah, and the South moniker, that's a whole other asinine thing. I've spent some years in the South. I've spent some years border to border, coast to coast. So there's not a place that I haven't at least visited, if not lived in. Minus Hawaii and Alaska, the lower 48. But yeah, I got to say, the South is everywhere. So this whole the South and the South is this way and that way. Try California. Believe it or not, there's tons of quote unquote rednecks in California, New York. So whatever. But it's interesting how that subcategory, that subculture, it's okay to mock it, expose it, however you want to look at it. But when we talk about black thugs, niggas, all of a sudden, that's not allowed. It's a protected group. It's kind of like Muslims. If you say anything about it, all of a sudden you're Islamophobe. If you're saying anything about sodomites, all of a sudden you're a homophobe. If you're saying anything about Jews, all of a sudden you're a Jewophobe or whatever, anti-Semite. So, I mean, if you can't name the evil, then how do you address the evil, right? That's the problem, and that's what they've set up. They've disabled our ability to address these evils, and that's why we are in the mess that we are in the 21st century. This is not something that's new. This is a process that's taken many generations to instill. What else do we see? We saw two main characters, as you might have guessed. Eddie Murphy plays a convict, a nice looking convict, a nice suit, by the way. Nick Nolte plays the white cop. Now, in the context of the 21st century, what's going on there? What kind of dynamic do you think plays out there? I mean, you saw it for yourself, but that's pretty much, I don't want to say what the movie's based on, but it kind of sort of is. It's that dynamic between, a bad racist cop that's being rough with the black con, who's wrongfully accused, of course. Who's a Robin Hood stealing money from the bad guys. And so he's the good guy. And there's a lot of racism back and forth, and if we would look at that same clip now, we would say, well, the racism is the use of the N-word and the spear chucker comment at the end and that kind of stuff. So, but of course the redneck and all that stuff is okay. I need to point out also that Nick Nolte's character is not a redneck. He's just basically a white cop, and that's significant too. But in the scene, he's associated with rednecks. He's like, oh, these are my kind of people, right? So all white people are now rednecks by extension. So we can see basically that, yeah, I mean, if you watch the movie, it's actually, I hate to say it, if I'm going to be completely honest, I've got to admit that it's still one of my favorites when it comes to entertainment value, production. It's very well done. It's a hilarious movie. So if you're in for some entertainment that's, let's say, not kosher, but not literally, yeah, I would recommend it. But outside of that, just buckle up. Keep your guard up. Keep your armor on, spiritually speaking, if you're gonna watch it. So, with that, let's get into the sequel. Another 48 hours. And you guys, I had some clips from other things I can't seem to locate right now. I don't know if I X'd out of them or not, but anyway. So let me share with you this stuff. These are static images, and then we'll get into the video clips. Static images should be safe to show. Sorry. All right, so here at the 18-minute marker of another 48 hours, and this is a 1990 film. 1990s was basically a cultural, how can I say it? It basically went to the next level, culture speaking. And they say that culture comes down from, is downstream from this. Culture is fabricated by mass media. Do not kid yourselves about that. Again, culture is created by mass media. It's not art imitating life. It's the other way around. And we now can, 100 years of Hollywood, amongst other things, we can now look back and see that. But the important thing is that we need to be honest with ourselves about it. Otherwise, you know. So, yeah, so the 90s, there was like no, I mean, the thing is like MTV, for example, pretty much stopped showing videos, went to VH1 to do the song videos. They started doing their own originals like Beavis and Butthead, you know, the two potheads sitting on the couch, being stupid. Yeah, fire. Okay, so, and that was the new culture being implemented, you know, Jackass and Tom Green and that kind of thing. And, well, you know, have no boundaries. You know, you can do whatever you want. Madonna was from the 80s, but she really took it to the next level in the 90s, and Prince and so on. So it was quite a cultural revolution of its own, one that gets no credit for that. And then the turn of the century in the 2000s, early 2000s, things got quite dark, melancholy. And in fact, there was a movie called Melancholia. Things got, and speaking of dark, by the way, if you watch 48 Hours, excuse me for changing the subject here, a bit of a tangent, but before I forget, I want to make sure I cover this. The lighting issue since the lockdown, they've actually go out of their way through CGI to make things, you know, dark, make you feel downcast. Hello, Roman 6 King. So, yeah, I mean, they're spending extra money to make things, you know, the lighting is just really gray and bleak. Where if you watch 48 Hours, 82, they had all kinds of night scenes, but the lighting is great. The figures are clear. It's quite the opposite, quite the contrast. How is it that 3 decades later, lighting gets worse? In fact, again, through CGI, spending of extra resources and time and so on, all of a sudden it gets bad. I mean, lighting is film production 101. So what's going on here? Again, by design, they're making you feel depressed. And I want people to be aware of that. When you're watching this crap that's already full of content, full of writing and so on, it's just completely corrosive. Also be mindful of the lighting, the bleak, gray, melancholy kind of presentation that subconsciously makes you also feel like it's like having a cloud literally over you. And that's what they're doing. And it's not by accident. Again, they're spending extra resources to create that effect. So please be mindful of that. If I were you, I mean, again, unplug. Don't watch any of the crap whatsoever. Yeah, and so I've got a short coming up. I've postponed that. I've got, you know, I get sidetracked with so many other projects, but I've got other people, experts, talking about that too. It's not just me. But I've been trying to warn people about this for years. Ever since I did the first live stream with Thaddeus 3 years ago, I brought that up. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. So yeah, so going back to my train of thoughts, you know, yeah, sure, not everyone off the tangent. What was I talking about? Anybody in chat remember by any chance? Somehow we got into this lighting topic. Yeah, let me just, maybe I'll think of it. Let me just go ahead and show you guys this thing. My apologies. Where's it at? Oh, here we go. Okay, so this is at the 18-minute marker. Yeah, so what happens here is basically you've got some extreme neo-Nazi-like bikers, like some Hell's Angels type. I forgot what they're called in the movie. But yeah, they got this radical name to their group, and they're paid assassins. Again, spoiler alert, I'm going to show some movie clips from Another 48 Hours as well, the sequel. So spoiler alert in advance, but with this one, you're not missing much. I mean, some of the production value in Another 48 Hours was actually really good. There's a lot of funny lines and so on. The acting, of course, really good. Directing and editing and all these things up until the very end. All of a sudden, at the very end, it just seems like they just cut things off and just got really whack. And all of a sudden, all these crazy plot holes and head scratchers and stuff. And of course, clear focus on their political CRT stuff as well. It gets really bad. But yeah, at the 18-minute marker, this is about a third way into the video clips we're going to see. We see this barmaid who she basically gets harassed by this white neo-Nazi biker group. And, they're just being completely sexual toward her. We don't know what one of them whispers something in her ear while he's grabbing her hair. And she's like, I don't do that kind of thing. You got the wrong girl. Then they're asking about a hooker that they know that they're looking for. And then they pull a gun to her face for no reason. I mean, she's not like fighting them or anything. They're not under threat. But yeah, so they take that to extreme. And so much so that there's even a plot hole that just doesn't make any sense, the way they execute it. No pun intended. So later on in the movie, and we'll get to that actually. Let me go on to the next one. Here we go. So later on in the movie, at the 48-minute marker, Nick Nolte comes in, and now he's asking about using this computer-generated picture of a perk that he saw. He's asking, have you seen them? And she's like, yeah, I've seen them with these, the white neo-Nazi bikers. They did all this and did that. They did all these horrible things to me. But he was cool. He was okay. He didn't bother me. You can say coincidence. And again, I was raised on this stuff, so I bought into it wholesale. But now, we're seeing the big picture. Obviously, there's some CRT conditioning here. Okay, and so there's some, here's your inclusion, I guess, diversity, rather. And so we have Chinese, some stereotypes too, actually. So there's a Chinese hooker. The hooker that they were looking for turned out to be Chinese. She's staying at a Chinese hotel owned by Chinese hotel owners, a couple that's shown to be a bit in a stereotypical fashion. Real gritty, as you see. But you see that in the original movie too. All the hotels and all that, they're all gritty. So I think that's just to set the tone for this, let's say, these dark figures, the criminal element. So it could be just that. I don't know. But now the police show up. Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. Well, Eddie Murphy's not a cop, but he helps Nick Nolte along the way, helps the cop along the way. So they show up on scene looking for him because they got that advice from the barmaid. And now the criminals, these two neo-Nazi bikers, pull out their gun, and Eddie Murphy tackles the guy with the gun, and this Chinese man gets shot. So we've got the tropes. And again, the hotel owners are portrayed as not necessarily dumb, but they're like screaming and they're not calling the cops for backup for whatever reason. So they're kind of shady. But this guy who's in a suit comes out of a room for whatever dumb reason. I mean, because that's what I would do. If there'd be a ruckus, I would come on and start screaming at the people. Well, whatever. That's not too far-fetched. I'll leave it at that. But all right. But naturally, he gets shot. So I'll get to that. But it's interesting that he gets shot, and he's the only innocent person throughout the movie that I can recollect that gets killed in the movie. Everyone else is a criminal or something to that effect. So he's the only innocent bystander that gets shot. Keep that in mind. Okay. Let's see. Let's go ahead and remove that. Let's see. To be fair, bikers wanted that label. You mean Hell's Angels especially. It's funny if you guys are, thank you for introducing me. Give the gospel. He's another brother in Christ, as I say. He's a content creator, someone who's fighting the good fight. He's addressing Mormons and some atheists too. He's doing that. But he's also an ex-Hell's Angel. I did his testimony video is actually on my channel. It's worth checking out, but he's got it on his too, for Mormons. But prayers for him. And now that I'm putting a prayer requests, Lily of Speaker's Corner, she's like being harassed, stalked, hunted. I'm assuming from Muslims. I could be wrong. Of course, Christian apologist, patriotic Christian. He too is still in the hospital. And he does his best to kind of get online and share a video. But yeah, prayers for them. You know, these are exemplary people that are fighting for their lives, but still go out there and put themselves on the line regardless. Yeah, but yeah, he was talking about how rough the hell's. I mean, in fact, when I was young, yeah, there was a kid who got his legs broken for touching. Oh no, he accidentally knocked over one of the Hell's Angels bikes, and so they broke a little boy's legs, and that's twisted. That being said, I've also interacted with Hell's Angels working in a restaurant during bike rally week in a tourist community, and outside of that, they're actually quite respectful. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, and all that. But you don't want to cross them. That's for sure. Yeah. And speaking of which, now that I'm on that subject, come to think of it, so that would be on right after Memorial Day weekend. We would have the biker weekend. So and that after a while we started calling it the regular bikers, because before that, now the black bikers wanted to show up in the same tourist community. So, and year after year, they would come up for the whole week. And you guys call me racist all you want, but I'm just speaking facts. You may or may not be able to find news reports on this. This was in, I'll go ahead and say this was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Yeah, they would basically devastate the entire community. Shops would shut down. It was so bad. I mean, they weren't making money anyway because they would close off the roads. I mean, it would look like a war zone. You know, of course, crime went up. I myself, I had a Trans Am back then. And I mean, who knows? I almost got carjacked. I don't know what. But basically, it was around 3 a.m., give or take. And I was driving home, and it was just basically me. It must have been a Sunday night, because that was kind of rare for that. At any rate, I got surrounded by a bunch of black bikers, and they were literally surrounded. And I'm driving home. This was on a bypass. And yeah, I know I'm getting off on tangents here, but just so you guys, and I'm speaking about personal testimonies, so to speak, just so you guys know how real this stuff is. It's not, you know, just rhetoric. I mean, I could go on and on and on all day about this, actually. So, and again, I don't want to be part of the problem. I don't want to focus on the blacks and all that. It's not. I'm focusing on a subculture of, you know. Now, I don't want to sound like this guy. I had a black friend and all that stuff, but I'm not like that. I take people as they come and judge them by their fruits, and to a fault. In fact, I'll allow allowances. I allow people to get away with all kinds of things. But yeah, so basically, yeah, they surrounded me. They would not let me pass. I had to now veer off of the bypass to get home. I had my signal on for, I don't know, several minutes. They would not move over. And I heard somewhere else that likely had the intent to carjack me. That's what they do. But I got into road warrior mode and just started, you know, I was just ready. Okay, well, these people obviously have no good intent in mind, and so I've got to do something. And so tried to run right into him, just like you saw in the video recently about the guy ran into a crowd. I got to wonder what that was actually about, how that actually transpired. I'm not making excuses for someone running over people. That's insane. That's evil. But I still have to wonder if he was under siege and there was a reaction, or if he was just mass media conditioned and overreacting and being racist. I don't know. But I had to make that call, and I started going to the right, not jerking, not trying to kill someone, but whether they died or not was then up to them. And yet they saw that and got out of the way, thankfully, and let me go. Thankfully, there was no guns pulled or anything like that, and that was the end of it. Now, you make what you want out of that, but I've got tons and tons of stories, including playing basketball with the brothers for years, and then them beating all my friends up, all my white friends, breaking limbs and so on. They didn't mess with me because they thought I was crazy, and they would tell me that. But it got to the point where another white kid, never been there, just shows up, just all dressed up stupid, looking like a White Man Can't Jump character. And they started giving him hell, and I was like, man, they're going to hurt this guy. And so I felt compelled to stand up for him, and they surrounded me, and I was ready to go out. And they saw that. I guess they're right. I guess I was crazy. They backed off and didn't do anything, thankfully, or I was going to die that night. But yeah, that was it. I mean, some of those, I'm saying that because some of those were actually my friends, yet they turned on me. Why? Why? Because of skin tone. Being told I'm going to get lynched. Why? Because of my skin tone. I mean, just all kinds of things. I had a knife pulled on me, put to my neck, in a quote unquote robbery attempt that was just playing, joking. When again he saw that I was crazy. Glad that he backed off too, because I would have died if he did cut me. My artery. There's no coming back from that. So yeah, I mean, a gun pulled on me. I mean, throwing rocks. Talk about Muslims throwing rocks. Blacks throwing rocks at me because of my skin tone. Boys club just walking up to me when I was a little kid, someone twice my size, punched me in the face because of my skin tone. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. So, yes, there are racist blacks. Thug culture is disgusting. It's disturbing. It needs to be stopped. Rap music needs to be outlawed. But instead of that, it's a protected group. And you can't say the things I'm saying, regardless of how true they are. And that's the problem. And that's what mass media has created, has established. Oh, wow. My little boy wrestled 2 angels. Cute. All right. So the mass shooting in a casino, I'm not familiar with that, Romans, to be honest with you. Yeah, and then, yeah, exactly. I mean, basically, it's exactly what to do. Yeah, just shut off the lights in the bathroom and in middle school and jump you as a group. I mean, I've had some of my black friends that I thought were my best friends suddenly turn on me because their other black friend told them to, and just attack me. So, again, just because of skin tone. Yeah, well, it's hard when you live in a black neighborhood to be comfortable in your skin and they're chasing you, pelting you with rocks because of it. Yeah, so anyway, let's get back to this task at hand here. Another 48 hours. All right, I'm going to show you the first clip. Keeping in mind of the static images I showed you and what they mean. Let me show you those again because I went off on all these crazy tangents. Let me go back. Show you guys. Okay, so you remember the Chinese stereotypes? We're just remembering that this innocent Chinese guy, is the only one that gets shot. Innocent bystander is the only one that gets shot in the movie. Again, the comparison, the white racist bikers versus the black criminal who's a really nice guy, well-dressed, clean cut, like Eddie Murphy. So he's okay. He's okay. The white bad, black good. And again, yeah, just the portrayal of the misogynist white man. and so on. So, all right, so we'll move that again. And let's go to our first clip. All right, so this, I'll let you guys watch it, and you tell me what you think of this.
Who you calling, friend?
Nobody. I wasn't calling nobody.
Somehow I don't believe
Oh, God! Oh, no!
Yeah, I'm gonna get to your comment in a minute. I don't want to forget. There's a couple of things that happened there. What happened in there that I like to address? My first mission here is to expose mass media in how it portrays Christianity, how it portrays its terms, key terms, and its symbols. And so, what does the victim shout before he gets one between the eyes? Oh, God. No big deal, right? Well, unless you do it over and over and over and over again, flick after flick, year after year, decade after decade, generation after generation. And over a century of that, all of a sudden, oh, God means, you know what, something bad's about to happen. There's outside of Christian movies, when is it really portrayed in a positive light? The word, oh, God, or the expression, oh, God. In a redeeming way, that is. Yeah, so Roman 6 King says two biker groups in Myrtle Bay Casino. I'm not familiar with that. There's some shooting. Honestly, I'm not familiar with that. Yeah, I wish you guys can share a link. Yeah, but again, I don't know anything about it, so I don't know how to. If you want, 6 King, come on up and talk about it. Oh, there's Slim. I'll give you a minute to let me know. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready, Slim. All right, so the other thing was the whole don't be a snitch. Snitches get stitches. All right, is one of the expressions. Don't be a rat. How often do we hear don't be a rat, don't tell? All right. So, thanks for the reminder, Give. So that's a problem. That's something that's been ingrained, implanted into our psyche, deep into our psyche. Don't be a snitch. It's the worst thing you could be is to be a snitch. Why? All right, gotcha, Slim. All right, hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And you?
Good to see. I'm good. Thanks for asking. You know, I'm some Tylenol and some kind of other pain pill. Feeling good right now.
Dealing with it okay?
You know, I'm gonna survive. It's just annoying more than anything else.
Survival what matters.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm just more concerned. Exactly. I'm more concerned about how I'm going to survive this winter, but we'll see. I need to get more serious about fundraisers. But it's just not only embarrassing, it's just difficult to tax people with all of us being in a bad situation. But I'm gonna put you on the spot. Have you ever? You don't have to answer this, but if you feel compelled to, have you ever snitched on anyone?
Depends how you perceive snitching, doesn't it?
Yeah, thank you.
I've got to say, see the word snitching. It's an odd thing. It's like somebody breaks into your car, you phone the police, and they get caught. Are you snitching, or are you just reporting it to police because you've been hard done by? A lot of people that use the word snitching and say snitches get stitches, they're the bad guys that are out to rob everybody.
Well, let me tell you, in the hood, that is snitching. And then I'll give you another example.
The trash want to make you think that you're doing wrong by phoning the police and saying, I've lost a lot of money here, my car's wrecked.
Well, so let me tell you what happened here. I was in the hood for a couple of months and survived that experience. I mean, literally. I actually had a bullet fly by my ear at night. And I know that to be true because of the descriptions I heard of military people talking about what that's like. So I know it was a bullet now. At any rate, also my girlfriend, her window was shot out. So our neighbor, and she was out, thankfully, but our neighbor basically, you know, he had a what do you call it? I can't think of the word now. Basically, a guy who goes around and beats people up to collect money. I can't. The word escapes me.
Loan shark, an enforcer.
Enforcer. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Exactly. He's enforcer. He's like, and he's sitting there talking to the guy in front of my door, like in front of his door. He's my neighbor, but he's like, yeah, I'm a enforcer. That's what I do, and this and that. You want me to go? Let's go get your money right now. And he's like, the guy's like, all right. He gets talked into it, and they go and they bring the guy over to the front of his door, and they're like beating him up. The guy's like screaming like a woman, help me, you know, like I think they broke his hand. So I was screaming that. And then about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes later, sometime later, I hear a knock on my door. And open the door, and it's my neighbor and a couple other guys standing behind him. And I'm like, yeah. And I keep the door closed and keep half my body closed, you know, with just to give them the impression that I've got a weapon waiting just in case, which I didn't. All I had was a bluff. But so basically, he's like, hey, this is my neighbor asking me now, hey, is everything okay? And I play stupid. I'm like, yeah, everything's okay. What do you mean? He's like, I'm just seeing if everything's okay. I'm like, yeah, everything's okay. How are you doing? He's like, all right. And then I don't know what else was said, but basically it was left to that, thankfully. So, long story short, he was checking to make sure that I wasn't calling the cops.
Yeah, you see, it doesn't suit them, does it? Look, for me, I'm a guy that's into go out and work for everything I've had, right? I've no went around helping myself with other people's property. But I know those that do that, those that do, you know? Right. They're the ones concerned about snitching and use the words like snitching. Decent people are allowed to phone the police because they've worked for what they own.
Right. I mean, it's just like the scripture says. I mean, you know, the evil thrives in the dark. If you got nothing to hide, I mean, you know, there's nothing to hide. Long story short.
Right.
You know, in retrospect, I didn't call the cops, but that was a neighborhood where the cops didn't come to anyway. So, you know, I'm not kidding.
I would hate to live in an area. I know areas like that near me. And in fact, a lot of them, they were council. I don't know what projects you would call them in America.
Right.
But they were council estates, they call them here. And they broke them up and split the family groups up and that because there was so much trouble. But it's a horrible situation where basically you're at the will of the lowest in the community. And that is how I see them, unfortunately, right? I'm not going to say these people are, they're tough and they're this and they're that and they're idiots. For the most part, thugs, bullies, and rip-off merchants. It's still the eyes out your head if they thought they could get away with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly what I'm trying to unearth here. It's basically this whole thing that's been, you see this in so many movies. It's been ingrained in our heads that, you know, you shouldn't have snitched. It's an unethical snitch. I mean, so many movies that teach what I've been calling for a while now, pseudo morals, and they'll slip that in. And it's unfortunate because, like you said, if you're not snitching, if you're not calling the cops, then the problem only gets worse, and that is the biggest problem.
Well, who does it benefit? It certainly doesn't benefit you, because then you can't even phone the insurance company and say you've got a claim number. Here, see if my car, for instance, I mentioned the car because it happened to me with a car. I've had very little other dealings with the police, right? I got a car broken into. This was in the days when stereos, they called them stereos here, you know, your
right
in-car entertainment, when they weren't integrated and they could rip them out. They could just stuck things in and pull them out and cut your cable and install your plugs, and it costs you a fortune. I mean, it costs you an absolute fortune to get it. And they see you've got a blow pump, you know, and you come out, you go to work in the morning, and your window's smashed and they've ripped it half the dashboard off to get your stereo out of the car.
Exactly.
And then if you don't phone the police, you can't even claim your insurance. Because if you're not reported it, you can't make a claim.
That's a good point. I never thought about that.
So, things like that, and if they get caught for it, he grassed me up. No, I never grassed you up. I didn't know you were stealing my stereo. In fact, see, if I did know you were stealing my stereo, I wouldn't have phoned the police. I'd have sent somebody that I know round to your door.
Right.
And he wouldn't have been just taking the stereo back off him, right?
Yeah.
Chop. Mr. So-and-so, aye. Smack.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. You call the police and does set you up. I mean, but you got to do what you got to do. You got to be willing. You know, it's interesting that black women in these communities get away with so much more than other people do. But they're usually the ones that are the vocal and will say something. Usually, not always. Unfortunately, a lot of them. I mean, to be honest, are racist too. That's where their children learn is from their racist parents. I mean, let me give you another example. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying that's right. And in my experience, I've got to be honest, right? In my experience, the R word, you know, the R word that everybody would go to jail here for saying, the only people I hear saying it are a slightly darker shade than me.
Well, I mean, let me just share this story. So basically, when I was young, I had black neighbors. I lived in a black neighborhood. So my black neighbors, they were my age. We were good friends, so I thought. They had a cookout one day, and so I went to one of the adults I didn't recognize, and I asked them a childlike question. If you had a wish, what would you wish for? And he said a machine gun. You'll probably guess why he said machine gun. But as a kid, I'm like, a machine gun? Out of all the things you could wish for, why a machine gun? And he said, so I can kill all the white people. And so that stuck. I mean, as a kid, I'm like in shock, like, what the world? What just happened? You know? But
they say comedy's dead, huh?
Yeah. But conversely, I had another black friend, and this is one that I suffer from myself as a Greek American. I too am guilty of this. Even to this day, I'm aware of it and try not to do that. But so basically, one day he told me, you know, I wish I were white. And again, for us, it's like doy, you know, that's a common sentiment. We understand that. But as a kid, I'm like, what do you mean you wish you're white? Why would you say that? And he said, you know, you would have more privileges or something to that effect. And so he hated the fact that he was black. He hated himself for being black. And that used to kill me for the longest time until I realized that as a Greek American, I've done the same thing for a very long time. Try to hide or disassociate myself from my Greek identity or culture. So this kind of thing is kind of things that are also ingrained in us and something we need to be mindful of. And something that Teach 'em Chuck and all them, they address. They talk about all this racism stuff and expose it, but they're also quite proud that they're black. You know, they're proud of their black culture, and that's okay. As long as we're not talking about, sorry.
They're the same people, right? I'm saying is it because they might be proud of their black colour and they might talk often about their black colour. And then they'll talk about their black brothers. And then they'll talk about, and that is clear discrimination. And it is, in fact, clear racism. I talk about people as people, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're talking about a subculture, and they're you know,
I don't say my white friend, or my pal who is white, I'll mention that is white. My workmate who is white. But you notice that certain groups and certain people are very quick to mention the skin tone of their own in English, that it's often the case, in fact, that these people that go on about racism the most, all the racists, you see them on the TV, you hear them on radio, they talk about discrimination, they talk about how they want equal rights. They're always wanting equal rights. They don't want equal rights. If they wanted equal rights, they wouldn't be talking about the colour of their face.
Well, I think that equal rights rhetoric is more along the lines of what this group talks about, and that's communism. Because if you think about it, equal rights, same thing for everyone, is more along the lines of that mediocrity than
Well,
it is.
a lot of these people wouldn't see themselves as communists. What they are playing a communist tactic, although I don't think even they're aware of that, by wanting special privilege. Or I want a leg up because I'm a white guy. I want a leg up because I'm disadvantaged. See, if you look at when I was young, I came from one of the most, in their phrases, disadvantaged places in the whole of Europe. The worst area in the whole of Europe was less than a quarter of a mile from my house.
And you didn't do too bad for yourself. You became an engineer.
Aha. Aha. No, I had a dad and a mum that says, you go to school, and if you don't go to school, I might smack you right across the thigh. You better go in there. You go into school, and you listen to that teacher, what she tells you.
Right. The good old days. And that's, there's examples of that in the black community, too. They're in a bad environment. Yeah. But they've got good parents.
Saying, is it because I was black?
Right. Well, I'm just saying, there's, the mass media rhetoric is that if you're in a black neighborhood that's, ghetto, if you're in a ghetto, then you have no chance, you have no opportunity, especially now they push that rhetoric, but when it's not true. It's all about the parenting. Even in an environment with all that criminal activity and bad influence, you can rise above it, by detaching from it, staying away from it, and focusing on improving yourself. Just like Bill Cosby was trying to say that he got villainized for. Sorry.
Well, in America, there is a major problem with single mothers in that community. And at this point, it does become racist because you have to talk about them as a racial group, that African Americans, if you like. Right. That's what they call themselves, right?
And that's
many of them actually come from two-parent households now.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, this one. And, I got to admit, I play it myself to some degree. I don't know about, as an apologist, I'll often talk about the Greek culture, and it seems like I'm starting to get known for that. Like, for example, the use of the word nefarious lately. So, yeah. But I'm addressing about real implications here. I know I don't want to get off another tangent, but just real quick, Greece has been under siege in different directions for a very, very long time. So it's not okay to add fuel to the fire by putting out this propaganda, whether it's true or not. So that's what I'm trying to point out and address too.
I think it's okay to talk about things in a realistic sense, but see to say the whole world's against you because of your skin tone.
Right.
Now, I know full well. See, if it was to do with simply your skin tone, I would say fair enough, but it's not. And a lot of these things, there's something that has amazed me. There's a lot of the people in America, the Afro-Americans, right? The African Americans. Why do they sound different from the other Americans when they've grown up for 10, 20 generations, some of them, in white neighborhoods, but still they don't even speak the same language. They make sure, in fact, they don't speak the same language.
Right, Ebonics. In universities, there's programs that are actually pushing Ebonics that are saying, well, you got to be open-minded and multicultural and accept Ebonics, which is basically saying these are academics that were in charge of forming education, by the way, that were saying, well, you got to speak like you're ignorant and you got to accept that, which is insane. How dare educators do that? To me, that's
only among certain groups, though, isn't it? See what I would describe as lowlifes, right?
Yeah. Right. Well,
they differentiate themselves from others by the way they speak. Now, I might have an accent. I don't need to talk and they don't need to talk like that. They don't need to buy drugs and all that. They know that they can do all that.
And it's kind of like Pig Latin. It's kind of like trying to come up with their own code so nobody catches on to what they're saying too. Yeah,
And other groups do it.
yeah.
In America, everywhere.
Yeah. So let me get back to this. So we kind of went off on a tangent. We started with "Don't be a snitch" to basically the whole gamut of the racism issue.
So
Sorry.
it's all linked together.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, again, but we need to make sure we're focusing on the source of the problem. It's it's not media within itself, but through media, the instrument. That's what's doing all the damage. All right, so let me get to the second clip. Oh boy. So yeah, remember the only person who died in this movie, to my recollection, innocent bystander, that is. The only innocent bystander was Chinese from the static image. Now let's watch this one.
Well, this is the guy. The balance is due, and he's tested. You understand what I'm talking about? We want him dead. Yeah, but that's no problem.
Please! Please! You! Move a step apart! I don't want anybody to get hurt here! So move slow!
Okay, so that's about 10 or 15 minutes into the film. And that was the criminal that you saw in the static image that the barmaid was being asked about. That was him. So the mass media rhetoric for 80s, 90s, for decades, especially by black comedians, was that the black guy always dies first. But here in the 1990 film, and there's many others, by the way, it's not just this one, you see that that's not the case. In fact, the only innocent bystander that dies was the Asian guy near the end of the movie. But this guy, goes on to the very end. Guess who kills him? Spoiler alert, people. Guess who kills him? Can anyone guess who might have killed him?
White guy. Is that a white guy? I bet it's a white guy. It's a white guy, and it's a white guy. It's a white guy. I bet it's a white guy. The white guy did it.
Not only the white guy, but the neo-Nazi bikers got him in the end for some erroneous, ridiculous reason. Just because he was black. No, not because he was black, but just because he didn't do something. It was just absurd. I mean, there's some plot holes near the end, but especially the very ending was it just got really, really cringe. But yeah, I mean, if I'm going to be honest, a good movie otherwise. So just putting that out there.
Don't you think a lot of these things, though, I mean, movie directors and such like, they're looking to get a bigger audience, right? And certain groups just accept these things and go, meh. And other groups get all uppity and start flinging things at the screen and cause a problem and want their money back for the movie.
Well, it's funny you say that. I'm thinking about the reboot of The Little Mermaid, which they again, this is the virtual ethnic cleansing. Now I'm kind of jumping ship, but again, just focusing on mass media and how mass media is the problem. I remember seeing one clip, I think it was a short or something, someone with it was a black mother recording their young daughter. She must have been like, I don't know, 5 years old, give or take, maybe between 5 and 10, pretty young. Watching this reboot, The Black Mermaid, for the first time. She's putting it on and she's recording her daughter's reaction. And her daughter was like mad because Little Mermaid is black. She's like, starts crying. Little Mermaid is not black. What did they do? So there was a lot of people complaining about that. But yeah, it's just insane. It just really is.
So many movies have been blackwashed now, haven't they? I mean, we've got period dramas here that have been blackwashed. I mean, period dramas for the 17th and 16th century, the BBC are putting it right. And they've got black ladies playing prominent English women.
Oh, boy.
And it's not that there's any doubt that they were anything other than white, because the portraits are hanging in art galleries and in museums. But they're getting them played for inclusion, diversity, equity, all that, it's nonsense.
Yeah. So just to answer, we got 3 things going on here. Just to give the Gospels question real quick. Yes, He died just like you said, Slim, twice over. He gets shot at, and then he gets fried. Or wait, he gets fried and then blown up at the end. Twice over. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. You know, it's just the white chicks from the Wayans brothers. I mean, the list goes on, but that one was, you know, it was they were doing whiteface, which is okay. Nobody complained about. And again, Eddie Murphy has done whiteface too. Nobody complained about that. You know, I mean, the list goes on. Blackface too. There's a lot of actors that do blackface. And this is a protected group, so I can't say which ethnicity they're from, but I bet you can guess what that is too.
Yeah. I guarantee they've all got one. See, even if they're no get the right colour,
Right.
Irrespective of what colour they all come from a certain persuasion. Those left-wing persuasions.
Yeah.
It's the same people.
Exactly.
There was a video posted earlier, and people have complained about him because he got attacked by a guy and he mentioned his ethnicity. Right? And he says, I don't know who it is that's done it. La-dee-da. And it's the lefties. The lefties get all up at there, but and they're the ones that say we can't be racist. But they're the same people that say everything's a social construct. But white men, the social construct called white men are the worst people in the world. We've got all the power. We've got all the. You know, it's nonsense. Absolute nonsense, and they know it. It's just a way. It's a technique they've found that they can employ to control the situation, control the narrative. And if you disagree with them, you're a Nazi. You're a Nazi. You're just so Nazi. And I had to point out repeatedly, the Nazis were socialists, they were left-wingers. Oh, that really starts a fire in the cauldron, that does.
They love the truth, don't they?
But the Nazis were socialists, mate. The Nazis, they were obviously left-wingers. The National Socialist Party were left. You keep going on about the right. The right. This is the biggest lie ever told. The Nazis were lefties. They were collectivists. They were lefties. And they'd have chucked their stuff in the bag with the Russians if they weren't so domineering.
Yeah.
The communists.
And they also showed, quote unquote, showed solidarity with Islam too. Go figure.
Well, you know, Islam left. And you know what happened every time, don't you? See the minute the Islamists get a touch of power. You know what happens to the lefties? Because let's face it, Islam's a clean living, intolerant culture. And I know it's a terrible thing to say, but they're not a tolerant culture. They don't tolerate people like those people that like men. You know, men that like men. You know, men's men.
You know, it's funny.
They don't like them.
Yeah,
they throw them off the top buildings.
I mean, I didn't witness the actual incident, but I was in Greece studying around 2016. I was working the borders, helping, volunteering for this historical mass migration. Again, I was completely uninformed. I was raised on American mass media, so I had no idea of reality. Well, not completely no idea. I had some idea, thanks to an ex-Muslim who showed me English translation verse in the Quran that said destroy the infidels, and he pressed me to ask my Muslim friends about that and don't let them not answer, which he knew they would try to avoid, and they did. All of them did. All of them tried to avoid it, and all of them showed me just stupid's delight at the end. They knew about it, and they were all faking. But at any rate, yeah, outside of that, I really had no idea. I was under the wrong impression about Islam, even as a Greek American. So, yeah, basically, what happened was...
all those liberal women also. Can you imagine, right, all those lefties who are queers for Palestine?
Right.
How long would they actually last? If you... And I suggested crowdfunding some flights out there for them. I mean, if they want to help Palestinians, I'd be perfectly well. I mean, I'm quite an open and accepting person, right? I'd be perfectly willing to start up a crowdfunding program to help them get out there to Palestine to support Palestinians or queers for Palestine. Send them out there. If they want to go to Palestine and help, just send them out there. I'm sure they'll be very welcome.
I wish no ill will. Yeah, that would
You
not
see what I
turn
mean?
out well. Yeah.
That
So
shows how
basically,
farcical it is.
yeah. So in this while I was out there doing this stuff, volunteering. So what happened was there was a gay guy amongst them, and he got found out. However, they got found out, and they beat the hell out of him. They rushed him into the medical tent, and coming out, there's a mob just waiting for him, and that goes to show how well the UN keeps order. By the way, there's a UN presence of 2. Anyway, so
The
basically,
UN, you know, the UN were in trouble for asking for sexual favours. I can't even really dumb it down much. Asking sexual favours in return for the food that they were meant to be giving out as supported.
it makes
UNRWA, or a Palestinian-run organisation.
Yeah.
I mean, the UN's totally corrupt. And all they do is hammer the Jews. They want to put more sanctions on the Jews. In fact, I think 80% or more of their sanctions are actually against Israel. Israel are losing that propaganda war badly. And that's what comes down to the propaganda that you're talking about in the movies. Despite the fact that most of the movies are actually funded by that community.
That's a whole other ball of wax. That's something I'm covering too.
The whole thing's a mind warp, if you ask me.
Yeah. I mean, this goes even the very first production company, Paramount Pictures, at the very first silent film, or not the very first, but of their very first, I think it was like 2016, 2 years after they started doing full features. They did a promotional piece of on Islam. It's back then I think it was I forget what it was called. It was basically oh boy, CCB DeMille and Lasky, Jesse Lasky, where they had a company, and then it was renamed Paramount Pictures. But anyway, so yeah, from the very beginning, even Hollywood, Jews were promoting Islam, which is mind-boggling.
Well, the relationship has faded away badly over the last, especially since the late 40s. But there's been a militancy formed within Islam that wasn't there right up until the Second World War. They were quite happy to live and let live. And if you look, I know that there's been pogroms and there's been events, the Armenian genocide, that sort of thing. But out in the Middle East,
the one nobody talks about is the oppression of the Greeks again by Islam. The Pontian genocide, nobody talks about. Sorry, go ahead. Just let me interject.
Right, but for the most part, they've been able to get along. I mean, it's been an off and on thing. But the whole problem with the Jews stemmed from the fact that if you believe the history, their own history, Muhammad was a Jew.
I might have heard that before. Where do you get that from?
Well, I listen to history channels and such like, right? And by their own historical accounts, if it's true, which there's actually doubt that any it's true, because you know how history belongs to the victors and they rewrote it. Muhammad actually was a Jew who got kicked out for being too radical, and then he formed his own wee side group.
All right. If you can find that and share that with us, especially in the comment section, if you don't, that would be intriguing. Yeah, let me get back to, because we're getting a bit off topic. It's my fault. I'm the one who brought up Islam, but sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to make the mic well look that thing up about Muhammad.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Islam is just, I don't know why I went on the tangent of Islam, but, oh yeah, we're talking about the flagellus. Yeah, so basically I was volunteering there, and again, yeah, there was a mob waiting for him outside the medical tent. And what does he do? What is his reaction? Hey, help, UN, hey, help, whatever. No, he just has a big old silly grin on his face, and he just kind of embraces the mob like open arms and starts kissing on these guys. And so they start beating him up again. Anyways, that night they electrocuted the guy. I found out the next morning. They pulled him up into these train wires and fried him. That's Islam. That's your.
They're a wonderfully tolerant people, aren't they?
Yeah. So let me go on to the next clip. Let's see here. Okay, this one. All right, here we go. Speaking of which, this is pretty much right on.
My money? Yeah, now you got the picture, convict.
You screwed up real good this time, Hammond. Self-defense. Oh, nobody's gonna buy that crap. Hey, wait a minute, man. I served 2 years for a crime I did. I never fucking denied that. But I just spent 5 years in there for some shit that was bullshit. I never robbed no damn payroll. You people got murderers in here been there less time than me.
You can spend your remaining time in isolation. Open up.
Yeah, so that's what Give the Gospel mentioned earlier about the whole victimhood card. We just got an earful of that. But she also mentioned being comfortable in your own skin earlier. I think that was her. We're talking earlier about that, about blacks not wanting to be white and all that kind of thing. Conversely, the left, these militant libtards, are people that are not comfortable in their own skin. They hate themselves. And so just like it's the antithesis of Christianity. All the law hangs upon these two things. Love God with all your being and love each other like you love yourself. Well, what's being created in them, integrated, what they're being inundated with, what they're being conditioned with, is a self-loathing. And therefore, they project onto everyone else. It's a completely anti-Christian mindset and culture. Sorry, go ahead.
The people... See the people at the top, the mullahs and such like, the mullahs, they have a lot to benefit. They believe that, in fact, global conquest is a thing that everybody in all lands should be under their domain. And I've actually heard people say it. You know, people say to me, you don't know what they're going to do, but you believe people when you tell you what they want. There's people that worked at local shops of mine that told me they'll be back. And then what you got to do then? I said, what? See when you're... I'm going to be honest, I says to them, see when you're back here with your cheap Pakistani-made machine gun, you're going to need people to fix that for you, ain't you?
Do they make their own guns? I didn't know that.
Oh, aye. Khyber, Pakistan. They've got a huge arms industry, the Pakistanis. But they're rubbish.
Okay.
But I'm looking in the background for that, and it was definitely J. Smith. It was a J. Smith lecture I was looking at, right? And I don't see it. The nearest one, it's J. Smith and Muhammad, a historical critique, which is got the red bar on it. I'm pretty sure that was it. But it's an hour and 35 minutes, the lecture.
Yeah. So let me get this Roman 6 King comment. You know, this too is something that was integrated. Not only a black Santa. He says we even had a black Santa, but that fizzled out. But the black Jesus thing, which hasn't fizzled out, especially the Hebrew Israelites. But all throughout media, one of my favorite shows from the 70s was Good Times. And there was an entire episode dedicated to black Jesus. And they had an image of the Catholic blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus on their wall. And the youngest son is an activist. And so he wanted to put up, in place of that, the black Jesus that his older brother painted. His older brother was an artist. And the father didn't like that, the father of the household. The mom was like, you know, iffy about it. But suddenly, all this good luck started coming from the black Jesus icon. And eventually the solution to the movie was, well, the black Jesus icon brings good luck, therefore that's going to stay up. Yeah.
Well, if Jesus was an Ashkenazi Jew, which it looks like he was historically, right? he would have a slightly pale complexion with a brown tinge. But that image you're talking about, Jesus on the cross and the blonde blue eye, do you know who that actually is? That's a person.
Right. I mean,
that's an actual person that was modelled for that, and I know who it is. The guy called Cesare Borgia. He commissioned that image, and the image of Christ. You know the image of Christ on the cross with the RNLI above his head?
Not particularly. If you share that.
The crucifix, the Catholic crucifix.
Okay, right, yeah.
With Jesus hanging on the cross.
Right. You know, it's funny you say that. Go ahead. But
that's a man called Cesare Borgia. You can look it up yourself. Take 2 seconds.
It's funny you say the guys from the Cross and Crescent discussion group a couple of months ago, they did, and he's talked about this on Lloyd DeYoung's channel too, Eric the Kafir. But he's talked about the Shroud of Turin, which I was like, whatever. I mean, pretty much skeptic about it. Didn't really care either way, to be honest. But then, I mean, I watched his presentation on Lloyd's channel, but then when on his channel, when he had it, and I was part of that panel, I was interacting with the content, and suddenly it was like the light went on for me. It's like, whoa, this is intense. I encourage everyone to watch it. Unfortunately, it's a 3-hour-long live stream. Half of it kind of veers off because it goes off in a completely different subject. Someone else takes over the show for the second half, but the first half is just absolutely brilliant. It was completely moving. And I realized there exactly what you're saying, that basically the Shroud of Turin, when you look at all the science and the images that they've extracted out of it, looks exactly like the icon of Christ from Mount Sinai Monastery, for example. And, you know, what you're saying. And it's basically also a biblical description. You know, bronze skin, hair like a lamb. Bronze isn't black. Bronze is more Arab, more Middle Eastern. Right.
Well, I've got an image here that I've called up. One of them is Cesare Borgia, and one of them's it's supposed to be a reconstruction of what Jesus actually looked like.
Right.
I can copy the link address, but it comes up with too many letters. Hang on. You know, you've got a maximum that you're allowable. But history is a story, his story. It's called his story, right? For that reason, most of it's a lie, in fact. Or
I gotta agree with you.
Misappropriation of the truth, right?
Yeah. I mean, to your point, I remember as a teacher looking at one of the history books. This is in the 90s now. Not a history book as a student, which I feel was different, but I could be wrong. But as a teacher in the 90s, I was looking at it, and it dedicated an entire 2 paragraphs. This is a world history textbook, an entire 2 paragraphs to the history of the Middle East. That was the heading of the chapter. 2 paragraphs. The history of the Middle East? Are you kidding me? Only 2 paragraphs? All the things you could talk about, and most of it was just a bunch of adjectives, just absolute straight up propaganda.
That's what you tend to get, though.
Yeah.
And saying that, it's hard to compact like 3 to 5, or if you include the whole Egyptian era, maybe 9,000 years in total, into a bite size.
Yeah, the Hebrews, all the pagan cults, but they don't want to talk about that. They'll talk about Greek pagan cults.
They were probably Greeks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a mess. And funny,
the pharaohs.
What's that?
The pharaohs were probably closer to being Greek than they were to being African of any part of that continent.
Okay, that's no one on me too.
Well, even when the Romans went and started courting out there about the same time.
Oh, you're talking about Alexander the Great. Yeah. Then there's that. I don't want to piss off any Arabs here. I want to get into that one.
This is it. You can't even talk about history without upsetting people, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but that one gets under their skin, trust me.
I know. Everything does.
Yeah. All right, so let me go on to my next clip. Speaking of, well, it's kind of all right. Let's just take a look at it.
Hammond, Reggie A.
I came by to give you $100 in cash and a free bus ride to San Francisco. All compliments of the state of California.
That's it.
That is it.
Thank you for sparing me the other crap. Hey, man, you ain't got to slam my shit down like that. Yo, where's my James Brown tape? The shit ain't in it. Oh. Everybody trying to keep me and James in prison.
I mean, yeah, that was a pretty good line. That was pretty clever. But yeah. So there you go. Black privilege or disadvantage. He's a victim just because he's black, kind of thing. That's the portrayal there. And even again, James Brown, trying to keep James Brown in prison because James Brown's is a victim, not a criminal.
With his great big bag of white powder.
Yeah. You know what's funny? And I'm overstating things here, but in the 21st century, the only guilty black man is Bill Cosby. And for what? For saying that, you know, black people should have integrity and work towards bettering themselves. All of a sudden became public enemy number one.
P. Diddy. What about that P. Diddy character? He's getting hammered now, isn't he?
Then there's that, thankfully. That's
you know, he's getting into trouble and they all want to know his client list. Oprah's many have skipped the country. I mean, where is that all going, do you think?
That just grosses me out, man. And it's typical. I want to say Hollywood, but that's not Hollywood. It's mass media, but it is typical mass media. You know.
Or is it typical of people with a lot of money? Do people with a lot of money become hedonistic and disgusting? Is it wealth that does that to people, do you think? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've wondered if the cash itself perverts people.
Well, both, and that's a great point. I mean, that too is biblical, you know. But yeah, but both. The way it's set up, it's designed for people that are desperate to come in and I'll do anything if you give me a shot. So it's also the business, the way it's set up, and it's so common. It's a common joke, which is just quite disturbing if you think about it. The fact that we actually laugh at it.
I don't know if I find it laughable. I find it ridiculous that so many people's in that business seem to be involved in it. But if you've actually a part of that business, it's easy for you. If you're at the top of a thing, right? If you're at the top of a thing, then you bring in to your club, if you like, people that you would like to be in your club. If you're a left-wing president, right, you're not going to invite a lot of Republicans in to represent you, are you? If you're a Democratic president, like Biden, he's not going to invite a lot of Republicans in to sit in the Senate and sit here and sit, because they might oppose your opinions. You invite people in that's going to go along with it. And I'm quite sure it's the same at the top of the media and movies. They invite people in that they can party with and have a good time with, and are like them. And if you're a dirty, filthy pervert, then you want to be surrounding yourself with people that you can have a good time with, and they're dirty, filthy perverts.
Okay, so now I get what you're saying now. So in other words, people that are like-minded are the ones that are given an opportunity, is what you're saying. That are.
It could be. I'm not saying that. It could be.
Okay. Yeah, that makes. I mean, it's interesting that as far as this one that we're watching now, the sequel, another 48 hours. Eddie Murphy's cousin actually contributed. He's an associate producer, so he likely even forked out some cash in the making of this movie. And he was involved in that way for several of Eddie Murphy's projects. So, I mean, it's all one big, forgive me, it's one big circle jerk. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. But, you know, if you watch Father Stu, I think it was the name of the movie. It was, I think it came out in 2023. It was basically about someone who was secular, who didn't believe, who was an atheist. Early in life, he went out to Hollywood to become a movie star, and working all these jobs and going to all these agents and so on. And one of the agents, he's like, "Man, come on, man, give me opportunity." He's saying to the agent, and the agent kind of smiles, and he turns over in his seat and he starts unbuttoning his pants. and he gets the life beaten out of him. But this is based on a true story, and so later in this movie, this guy, repents. Not the agent, but the wannabe actor. He basically repents of his lifestyle and ends up becoming clergy, a Catholic clergy. Ends up.
The music industry was like that for a long time as well. I mean, the Beatles, that guy, McLaren, Malcolm McLaren, is it?
I'm not familiar with the story. What happened there?
Well, basically, John Lennon had to service him for him to get a break in the music industry.
No kidding. Wow. Okay. That doesn't surprise me too much. I mean, he does come off that way. But yeah. I mean,
I think, honestly, see these people that strive to get in these positions, I think they get in them because they're unscrupulous. They're disgusting people that would do anything. They would step on or over anybody to get to these positions, right? And then you want your big break, and it's like, well, I could put you on the TV, and I could get you on the top 10, and I could get you gigs all over the world, but twiddles the moustache.
Right.
What's in it for me?
Mustache or something else. Doesn't sometimes it's
exactly.
A woman. Yeah. Yeah, and it's tragic. I mean, let me get on another, not a tangent, but addressing this whole privilege and underprivileged thing. I got to say, it's quite common for immigrants in America to give it their all, to excel even. The smartest group when it comes to standardized testing, I bet you probably already know this. Who do you think is the smartest group when it comes to
Asians?
Asians, yep, that's exactly right.
Ask me any question about you, I'll get the right answer. Go. Yeah. As a friend of mine used to say, bend if you don't.
Well, I mean, look, so it's not about genetics. Okay, it's not. They weren't born genius. I've been working with the Chinese for years, and I'm telling you, from the very beginning, literally from the time they could walk and talk, they're being pushed in all kinds of programs from morning to night, for 6.5 days a week. They get a half a day off. This is no exaggeration. I teach students, young kids, little Chinese kids that are crying, I don't want to do any more homework, begging. It's sad. And even during the summer, when they have 2 months of summer break, they're on with us learning. They're just nonstop, and that's how they excel. It is basically a sacrifice of yourself for the betterment of the nation, and that's what it is, and it's forced on them.
I don't know if it's for the nation, because I know Chinese people here in Scotland, and he works everywhere that he can. In fact, the reason I know him is he owns a noodle bar. It's called the China Noodle Van.
Nice.
And
that's catchy.
His daughter, she's going to university shortly, and he works like a madman.
Right.
And I've had some great conversations with the guy.
Yeah.
In fact, his favourite phrase is, I'm going to do it in his own accent. Why I don't mind my own business?
Amen. I can appreciate that one.
That's his catchphrase, in fact.
That's funny. All right, so yeah, I mean, I'll bring that example up as one immigrant group that we can all agree excels. But again, Greeks, Irish.
Why don't we hate them?
So
answer to that.
I'm biting my tongue. I'm trying. I don't want to get off.
I'm not going to. The reason that nobody really has a big opinion on them is they go on and do their own thing. They mind their own business. They live their own lives. They don't try and indoctrinate you into their way of life.
Right. Exactly, and they all work hard. That's the common thing. They dedicate themselves to self-improvement.
That's right.
That's right, and there's nothing to do with. I mean, I could tell you, as a Greek American, I had no extra benefits. In fact, myself busting my butt, as we say in the States, to go ahead to excel academically. They call me a professional student because I spent so many years in college. Excelled, got so many recognitions and awards. Yet I couldn't get a scholarship. I got some scholarships, but my for example, I did community college. I transferred, so I did community college for a year, so I can get in-state tuition for the 4-year thing. So I was looking for scholarships to do that for the 4-year college, and I had like 24 scholarships available. Well, let me rephrase that. There were 24 scholarships available. I would say most of them, about 90%, you either had to be a single mother or black to qualify. So basically, most of them I was excluded automatically because I wasn't a single mom, a broken home, or I wasn't black. So that where were my benefits? Where's my white privilege in that scenario? It was quite the opposite.
You see, that's what I was talking about. These people, they don't want equal rights. They want a leg up. And these programs that give certain ethnic groups privilege over others when it comes to it. And in America, it's the African Americans, right? These things are clearly racist, because if it was in any other walk of life, it would be described as racist. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck.
Right. I mean, and again, I'm trying to demonstrate here. I want to make sure people keep in mind that we hold the messenger accountable, because I mean, again, not all blacks are stupid or racist or ghetto, but the subculture that is, they're proud of it, and they are a detriment, and they are the ones that are not only buying into this communistic agenda, but they're the proliferators of it. They sustain it. They are the ones that send their children to school thinking that the white man is the problem. The man is the problem. And no matter what you do for them, no matter how much you sacrifice for them, they're still going to look at you like the enemy, just like Muslims. And that's the problem. And that's why, I mean, this is a problem that needs to get addressed. Unfortunately, when a very influential person of their own goes and speaks to his alma mater and says we need to have integrity, he gets instead villainized. It gets made an example of. We need to reverse this, and there's thank God, there's a lot of black people out there talking about this publicly. Despite
there's a lot of people that make money off of maintaining it. See, where there's money in it, it will go on indefinitely. It will never end. Never end. And you have to see that. See if someone can go on television or podcasts or any other format, radio, and they can talk and they can spread the word. There's a lot of people do it. The grifters that make money off of stirring it up. Whether it's BLM, I mean, typically they're leftists.
Yeah.
See, this is the thing. For all they try to villainize and vilify the right wing, as they call it, the right wing don't care what colour you're. The right wing don't seem to have any interest in talking about people's race. It's a pure meritocracy.
Yeah.
If you've got the best ideas, if you can do the best, you never see a right winger complaining that there's too many black people running the Olympics.
That's true. That's a great point. Never thought about that. Yeah.
Never once heard a supposedly right wing person say, wait a minute, all the basketball players are black, mate. We need some white folk up there.
Right.
Never once have I ever heard a so-called right winger complain about an all-black basketball team where these black fellas are winning prizes. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
They don't care. It's not they don't care about the people. They care about the people. They don't care what colour their skin is.
Right.
They just want the right people in the right job. And if you want a lot of basketball players and they want to say, oh, it's all a social construct. Well, if it's all a social construct, how come these black fellas cannot jump so high?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, again, I was, let's say, raised. I spent a lot of years in the South, in my youth, particularly formative years. And yeah, even then, I could tell you, and this was back when things were still pretty racist. By the 90s, racism was dead. The KKK was dead. But it was brought back in the 21st century while under Barack Hussein Obama's reign. This so happens. And so neo-Nazism.
It's just no prevalent in the racism thing. It's like see if you're one of these Marxists, they're all pushing this Marxist agenda, the long march through the institutions, right? When you ever hear them complaining that there's too many women in nursing?
Right. Yeah.
When would you ever hear them complaining that you go into any school, over 85% of the people in school, whether it's auxiliary care or teaching, are females? They don't complain about that.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's exactly right. And they're basing all this divisiveness, just like you're pointing out, off of absolute lies. Not only is it hypocritical, but it's fake.
That's right. But as again, the only time you hear somebody that's supposedly right-wing saying about it, they're pointing out that, wait a minute, you're cherry-picking the things you want. You want people in CEOs. You want CEOs that are one-legged black females so that you get your DEI ticks, right? But how many of these same people want to work 80 to 100 hours a week? Like these people that get to these positions in companies, whether it's the managing directors or the CEOs, they're workaholics.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So let me, so on back of this, actually, this is perfect. Let me share this next clip.
We're going to hold you overnight. We'll know more in the morning.
No, y'all ain't holding me overnight. No place. Me and my subdural hematoma going home. I ain't spent my first free day out in the fucking hospital.
Yeah, you're gonna be here till you answer all our questions. Are you sure you never saw those bikers before?
Look, man, all you rednecks look the same to me, all right?
Keep on them, Art. I'll be right back.
Oh, great. I gotta spend my first day out with Art the goddamn redneck.
All right. So there's a couple of things, again, going on there. The use of the word GD, which, is not necessary. But yeah, obviously there's some racism going on there.
Is it?
Yeah. And let me point.
Comedy.
Sorry, go ahead.
Is it racism or comedy?
Yeah, it's okay.
He's calling people rednecks.
Yeah.
I'm not offended.
Well, again, I was, my formative years were spent in the South, and so some people would call me a redneck, but also because a lot of those people were my friends, even though some of them wanted to kill me because I was a foreigner. But that was actually one instance and very few. I mean, yeah, I got to say, I do get offended of that. And here's what happens. The problem is that this whole redneck thing is being projected onto all white people by mass media. And we see the fruits of that in the 21st century with these activists outright stating it now overtly saying it. Before it was subliminal, but now it's a straight out fascist. It's a quest for genocide is what it is.
It does seem to be, yeah. Yeah, it does. And it shows you how far these people have been indoctrinated and how easy it is to push absurdities on weak minds.
Yeah.
Because if you look at statistics, a lot of these people have mental health problems. And the left have been quoting these people for generations now to get them on their side.
Well, yeah. Definitely a lot of drug use. And a lot of bad upbringing, a lot of broken homes. So no real proper parenting, or parents that are raising their children laissez-faire, do whatever they want.
And if you look closely, you'll notice that they've also been, I'm using the word courting for, I'm talking about courting for their votes. Now, they've been the liberal people, if you like, liberal they call themselves, the freaks, geeks and weirdos, the perverts, the sex workers, they're trying to get all the deviants, all of these people. I don't know the words to use in this day and age, but the left are actively quoting them for their votes. So they get all these people on the one side. And then you have a lot of people that have got obvious neurodivergent, they claim to be, the rest of it.
Right.
Yeah. And the left wing have been actively seeking these people to be a part of their system. And that's been going on now for a couple of generations.
Exactly, yeah. It's been on for a while. Yeah. I got to wonder how far back this goes, to be honest with you, because I'll be surprised if we're at the beginning of the 20th century. A lot of things...
It's been going on since communism kicked off and they tried to...
Exactly.
The West. If you listen to the Yuri Bezmenov thing, the KGB.
Well, I'll take it.
They were actively involved in it just after the Second World War.
Yeah, well, I got to take it further back. I mean, and I agree with you, but I'm saying it started happening with the Bolshevik Revolution. I mean, it wasn't taking place only in Russia. I would argue it was taking place in the U.S. very soon after as well.
Yeah, because people could still travel then, but it's still linked to the Second World War, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole West Coast was saturated with Russians. They emigrated and occupied the West Coast. And so, therefore, stands to reason they were loyalists to communism from the very beginning. So, yeah, let me show this next clip. And it's along the lines of the same thing, but let's just take a look.
Yeah, well, we got a problem here, Slick. Hey, man, back up. I'm not the one that hired these hillbillies, so don't come complaining to me, okay? Yes, Plan B. We got an ex-Marine on the case. Only problem is he's a hillbilly, too. Yeah.
Hillbilly. That's hilarious. Ooh, he's a redneck. Oh, wait, let me catch my breath here. I mean, So, yeah, you can see that. Let me just point out, too, by the way, in the 1982 original 48 Hours, the N-word was thrown around a lot by Nick Nolte to portray him as that racist white cop. And again, he wasn't a redneck, as we saw in the redneck bar with the cowboys and all that, but just a standard suit, right? A standard suit. A white cop wearing a suit that's completely racist and abusive towards the black convict. That's the victim, by the way. So there was, I mean, the N-word was thrown around a lot. But in this movie, it was not used not a single time.
Yeah, it moved on a bit.
Right. So at this point, sorry.
And the hard R wasn't he doing a girl at that point, right? I've got to say, this is one that if anybody should be offended here at the moment, it's me, because he mentioned hillbillies, and I have a very close connection to hillbillies.
There you go. Thank you.
Because I'm not offended. I'm just meh. But you know who the hillbillies were?
Well, we have them. I mean, again, I recognize hillbillies, and I know the difference. So we have them.
The hillbillies themselves. Let me tell you, the hillbillies themselves historically, right?
Scots.
We were Highland Scots,
right?
That were basically left after the 1690 battles and King William of Orange, the Billy Boys.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have a lot of Scots in North Carolina, and we have a lot of hills. I mean, the further west you go, there's a lot of mountains and hills, and so that's why I know the difference. I know the difference between the two. But these people are creating this stereotype where everyone white is a hillbilly.
It's a stereotype.
But again, it's being weaponized, and that's the problem. It's being weaponized.
No, it's, I've got to say, right now, you hear a lot of the racial slurs, but it comes down to if people don't care. I'm not getting all cancel Nick Nolte or cancel Eddie Murphy. I think Eddie Murphy's a lowlife, right?
Yeah, I do now.
It's not because he's in a movie using racial slurs. I don't think racial slurs are that bad. And that sounds terrible in this day and age, but it's how people feel about them. It's like the N-word, they call it now, right? The only time I hear people calling it is black people calling other people who are black the N-word. How bad is it if they call each other in a friendly term?
Yeah, like a nigga, please. I mean,
so the word itself doesn't have any harm.
Right. But you know,
it's how they see you using it. You're not in their club, so you can't use it.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's how it's used. I mean, like the expression nigga, please, when they're using it with the other person, they're calling out bad behavior. I'm completely okay with that. But when you have a rap song going nigga, 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 pow, pow, boom, boom, there's a problem there.
I'll tell you, the only problem is that they're the only ones allowed to say it. That's the problem. They've made it this club entry word where they can say it on the one, But nobody of a pasty disposition like me, nobody with peely wally skin. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're not allowed to say it, but they can. That's the problem because it's divisive in that sense. But they've made it that way by saying we can use it, you can't. Because
That's true.
A honky. That is a honky.
Yeah, I mean that's true, and I get what you're saying, and I agree with you. But I got to say, not completely, in the sense that I do have a problem with this whole nigga thing being sensationalized, being like glamorized, because that is a subculture, the thug subculture that does need to be admonished, and that's the problem. Yeah, and that's the problem when we can't use the word, we can't isolate, right? The left is actually the ones that are the biggest offenders by saying, well, if you use the word now, you're addressing everyone. They're kind of, in a sense, they're the ones that are calling all blacks niggas, which is a problem. I mean, you know, it kind of infuriates me. I know that sounds leftist, but it does, because that's completely offensive. There are so many black people with absolute good character integrity, you know, and unfortunately by those other people, they would be called, you know, Uncle Toms or you know that kind of thing, you know, house niggas and that kind of stuff. And that's insane. That's disturbing.
There's another one that they use here, which I seen a lady using. Now she is one of these activists, and the word is coon.
Yeah, exactly.
She called another black person a coon,
right?
Because this guy was agreeing with some white fella,
right? And it's just all wrong. It needs to be addressed properly, and the media is doing the exact opposite.
These are the people that are actually, they've got a livelihood based on telling you not to use these words, and by complaining about it, by writing in magazines and writing podcasts saying, oh, these people, they're this, they're that, but they're stirring up racial hatred for their own wage packet. And that's a disgusting thing. And that's what I said earlier. If there's a living to be made off it, it'll never die.
You know what's interesting, and I might be off here, but I think I could be wrong, but I think I might be onto something here. Isn't it interesting now in the 21st century, very recently, the murmur is that the new N-word on the internet by content creators, the N-word that they can't use is Nazi. They're not allowed to say Nazi. So that's the new N-word. But isn't it interesting that now in the 21st century, where the left has been weaponized to hate Jews, suddenly, all of a sudden, now they hate Jews, where they've been, you know.
There is a massive catalogue of words that you're not allowed to type into YouTube, for instance. A massive catalogue of words. Your comments just disappear. And it tends to be that, I think, when you've used them a few times, you get in a list and they randomly block you. I'm one of the people, because I try and openly debate things with people. But you can't debate without words, and they're making sure you can't use words. So you can't be the voice of reason if you can't use the words that describe these things.
Exactly my point. Thank you. Exactly. That's the problem. And I find it interesting that now all of a sudden we can't use the word when the very people that have the worst state of being conditioned are now weaponized to attack Jews. Now all of a sudden we can't say Nazi? Now we can't say it? Are you kidding me?
But you notice that the left wingers also are the ones that are against the Jews. They tell this is it. The left wing would call you a Nazi, but they're opposing the Jews. They're calling the Jews war criminals and all the rest of it out there in that Israel, right? And telling you you're a Nazi. So what they're saying is you are the people that would oppose the Jews, and you would have a pogrom on the Jewish types, when they're actually the ones that want to see them wiped out, because they're still supporting the Palestinians, the Islamo-leftists. So how in any way are the right wing the Nazis? It's insanity. The whole thing is insanity.
It is. That's exactly right. And that's the other thing they've been doing. They're driving us all crazy. That's definitely a big part of the agenda. Absolutely. All three, either through the conditioning or in a combination with the drugs. And you're talking about MK Ultra stuff, but at a grand scale.
One of the things that's become apparent to me is the war of words. And I don't mean they're using words to fight a war. they're fighting a war by omitting words and saying, "Oh, you can't say this, you can't say that, you can't." And this huge catalogue of words, see when they're taking away your ability to use words to describe any situation, and they've bunged them all in room 101 or stuffed it in the memory hole, you have nothing to fight back with if you don't have the words to use.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. That's the whole point. Exactly.
That is the tactic. That's how they fought the war.
Yeah, that's it.
And if you disagree with me, you're a fascist Nazi.
Exactly, a bigot. Yeah, so in this background that I used today, I've talked about it before. It's actually from a comic book I created. I spent over a year creating an entire comic book series, trying to forewarn people about where society is going. And this particular issue is called The Civil Race War. The comic book itself was called The Native Avengers. So this is a 2-page panel on the treatment that I did. This is the first issue. And it's a flash forward for warning where things are going to go. And it's basically, I don't want to say too much about it because even though I've been on the fence ever since I actually created it as something I can sell while I was waiting for my PhD program to kick off. So it's supposed to be a few months project and turned out to be a year. Anyway, but yeah, basically I forewarned about a lot of things. Even the forced vaxes, this whole alien red herring was actually how my comic book series ends. So I was going to even address that. You know, the Native American Indian thing, like I'm saying, that's a big thing now in the States. How the white people need to be, pay reparations and need to leave because it's a Native American Indian. But nobody's saying that to the Chinese need to leave, the Africans need to leave, the Mexicans, the Aztecs need to leave. Nobody's saying that. Only the Europeans are the problem. But anyway, and by the way,
but the question, who did you fight for it? Right. See if MD ever says about people paying reparations to somebody else and it was theirs, ask them, who did you fight for it? Because all the way down the line, it's like, you know that belief that the world sits on a pile of turtles and it's turtles all the way down? Have you heard that saying?
No.
Well, there's a belief, just like in the Terry Pratchett stories, where the Earth, Discworld and the Terry Pratchett stories, sits on the back of 4 elephants, travelling along on a turtle. If you're aware of the Terry Pratchett stories, Discworld and such like, there was 4 elephants, one of them died, can't remember their name. Now there's 3 elephants support the world, but the elephants themselves sit on a turtle. And when asked, well, what does the turtle stand on? The answer is it's turtles all the way down. But we have that situation when it comes to who did you fight for it? Because in the beginning, there was rocks and stone. Then the plants showed up. Then the amoebas showed up. And the amoebas crawled onto the dry land. And then they hung about it. And they ate the plants. And then at some point, about a week and a half later, humans showed up, right? It was a bit longer than a week and a half. But just to compact it down a bit, humans showed up. The first human showed up and he stood up on 2 legs and he said to himself, I'm going to invent the flag and I'm going to shove a flag in the ground. This was day 2. Shoved the flag in the ground and said, it's mine. Now, there might have only been one at the time, so there was nobody to fight for it. But see, every other generation, somebody fought for that plot of land. Somebody battled him and took it off him. So the question, who did you fight for it, often really upsets people. Because the truth is, they're telling you it's theirs. Like the Native Americans. They were beating the fucking crap out of each other for generations. For thousands of years before the white man showed up and beat them up.
Well, see, let me just point, in response to that, let me just say what I just recently heard on mass media on the internet. And that's that, and this is common rhetoric actually, that the Native American Indians are so superior to the Europeans because they don't believe in land ownership. But if that's true, then the question is, what are they complaining about? If they don't own it, then they lost nothing. They didn't own it to begin with.
See, that is blatant bullshit.
I'm being facetious.
Because the tribes were slaughtering each other for portions of land. One tribe would kill another tribe, enslave their woman, and then keep it. And then some other, the Pioneer, whoever it was, would come along and say, oh, that's a nice bit of land there next to a river with some decent trees and cattle, and the bison come past here. Here, you come here, headbutt, you've had it, that's it, off. And it was theirs. There was never a time when people were getting along without smashing each other's skulls in. It's in the nature of people.
Yeah.
The oldest human fun had his head smashed in.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what this comic book was doing. I mean, like I said, the idea was just to sell it. But then I was like, well, I actually I pitched it to Frank Miller a couple of times. Second time he had security escort me out. But that didn't go well. But basically at that point, I'm like, all right, so I'm going to turn this into a different kind of project where it's just going to be basically evangelizing kind of thing without actually preaching Jesus, but basically exposing what I'm doing now on YouTube, exposing all the nonsense. And so it was demonstrating how we're saying how pagan Indian culture actually was, and how aggressive they are. I've lived again in an area that was you were either Native American Indian, or you were black, or you were white / redneck. And in that community, that was the most violent community I've ever lived in. Literally, we had stabbings regularly, and it was a small community. It wasn't like a big city, inner city thing. It was a small community, but regular stabbings in school where you're scared whether or not you're going to live. And it was all race. It was all racist. It was all inspired or driven by racism. But the most racist group out of the three, in my opinion, and maybe I'm biased there, but it really seemed like it was the Native American Indians. They were the most willing to quickly pull out their knife and start cutting people up because of skin tone. And you can argue, well, they're just defending their native land. Sorry.
They've had that reputation, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well,
and the res Indians, the reservation Indians, they've got the Navajo Nation out there, that wee kind of independent place where they live. Have you heard of the Navajo Nation?
Right. I stopped in Navajo land for a minute and felt very one of those times in my life that I felt very scared and knew I was unwelcome there.
They kill each other at a higher rate than anybody else kills anybody.
Yeah.
So it's not an opinion, it's a fact. You know what I mean? They kill each other even at a higher rate. Yeah. But is that cultural or is it?
Oh, it is cultural. I mean, it's racism, and you can argue that part of it as well. You know what? They're fighting for the land, and
they kill each other.
Yeah, they're exactly.
They also kill each other at a higher rate, even than.
Right. I mean, exactly. They were killing each other before the Europeans showed up. There were warrings before the Europeans showed up. So, give it a break. And thank God. I mean, I'm not colonial. I'm not for war. I'm anti-war actually, but still, thank God for Alexander the Great, who spread a universal language, and thank God for the colonial Europeans who ushered in the opportunity for these people to be exposed to Christ. And I'm not saying, again, I'm not trying to justify it, but I am pointing out. Then there's that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so another thing that this comic did was actually was trying to forewarn about January 6th, as you see in this two-page splash. So I'm bringing that up just so I can get back to this warning of where we're being pushed still. I want people to understand that us talking about these things publicly, we're not, or at least, we're not encouraging people to go out and attack or hate on Indians or hate on blacks or whatever the case may be. Quite the opposite. I'm trying to equip people with the awareness so they can fight the conditioning of mass media and its implications. so they can avoid feeling like they have to do that. Yeah. So
Well, for
avoid.
my part, I'm certainly not advocating that these things are right, but one of the problems we have is to observe a thing and talk about it. If you
Right.
talk about a thing, somebody will twist it to say that you believe this or you believe that,
Right.
and they will impose their will of what they think you think. And what they
Right.
think you think tends to mean more than what you actually think.
Right. And you know, I've been now that you're on, let me go off on a tangent, but a semi-related one. And that's the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. Where are they when it comes to the slander for Greeks, for example? Greeks get slandered on a regular basis. I never once heard the ADL jump in their defense for the anti-defamation, for that defamation.
If it was Greek Jews, they would be all over it. The ADL only exists to protect the Jewish peoples.
Is it protect or is it something else? That's what I'm getting to. Because
but they only seem to get involved when it's Jews, and it is a Jewish thing.
Right.
The ADL is basically there to protect Jewish rights.
Well,
and I don't think there's anything wrong in saying that or wrong in that belief. It is the case. It's a Jewish thing.
Allegedly, and maybe these days it's okay, given the attitude of the left, and as you pointed out again. But yeah, it's just so interesting that the left was pretty much ADL militant. So what I'm saying is that because of the ADL and this kind of mindset, again, we can't say anything about the Jews that is true. And again, all my life, I was one of the biggest victims of mass media, and therefore I was a Zionist all my life, up until very recently. I believe that the Jews are God's chosen people, and that is their land, and so on. Well, upon some theological research, I realized, well, you know what? The Jews, well, I don't want to get into too much of a tangent, but that's not completely true. But not only that, they are some of the biggest offenders of propaganda when it comes to fascism, amongst other things. But also the degradation of society comes from the Jews. And well, I'm talking about Hollywood specifically, but it's beyond that. But let's stick to Hollywood. And I just lost one of my viewers because I'm talking about the Jews. There you go. So people quickly get offended when you speak any truth about the quote-unquote protected groups. To me, wrong is wrong. Sin is sin. Evil is evil. Whether you're Jewish, you're black, you're female, you're queer, whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. Sin is sin. So when people get their panties in a bunch, when you say something about the Jews, I would like to think it's because of conditioning, that they don't realize that, you know what, this is a real problem and needs to get addressed. We're seeing here now racism against quote-unquote Europeans, white people. They're not talking about Russians, by the way. Why do you think that is? How are Russians that are predominantly white excluded?
I've got to say, the Russians, they're one of the most, and I hate to use the word, diverse nations on the planet.
Yeah, well, but
they go all the way from China to Finland. They go from blue-eyed blonde all the way actual Mongols and Chinese people.
Yeah.
It's vast. They've got Eskimos, they've got literally blue-eyed blonde Aryan types, if you like. I don't know if that word's appropriate. They've got all the way to the...
Well, in the context of this discussion, it is.
And if you go north, they're only 150 miles from Russia up at Alaska.
Right. No, I get it. Right. And this, again, America's supposed to be white, but it's actually one of the most, it is probably the most diverse nations. Yet you've got all these people in 21st century going on about diversity. And that's not, again, that goes way back. As you said.
I mean, what I'm talking about is natural diversity where there are no imports. They just have always been there. I mean, Mongolians are from Mongol, right? Yeah. But Russia goes all the way up the steppes up there.
Well, there's some conquests, some historical conquests that took place there too.
The modern country of Russia.
All right.
That which is on the map, it says Russia.
I'm just saying, let's keep it in perspective. There was some annexing, let's say.
There always is that.
Yeah. But at any rate, yeah.
The current borders,
Yeah. So my point is this, though. Basically, there's one group that's being singled out, and that's a reason. And this is something I'm recovering more and more. It's BRICS. This is a very anti-Christian entity. I mean, that cannot be understated. And yes, I know Russia's in it. And yes, I know I just said Russia's predominantly white. But Russia is communist. And before...
Brazil's a Catholic, wasn't it?
Who, Russia?
Brazil. You mentioned BRICS.
Oh, Brazil. Yeah, Catholic. Right. Recently, and even with the Catholic thing, they have the Santa Gria kind of... I mean, you talk about...
I know the left wing, they run it right enough.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a cultural thing, actually. They're integrating their pagan culture into their Catholicism. If you talk to Brazilians, they'll talk about that. It's quite common in Brazil, and in those areas, actually. It's not just Brazil. But before the colonization, as we said, and the Europeans bringing in Catholicism.
They're all communist countries. Communist countries, isn't it? Brazil's communist. Russia was communist. China is communist.
Arguably still is communist. Arguably. Yeah. And then, but yeah, I mean, basically pagan. I know you're saying it's modernly Christian, but it's quintessentially, it is pagan. The same thing with the rest of them. Of course, India is pagan through and through. China, of course, is pagan. Even though they're communist, they still practice their pagan religions. And as an educator teaching Chinese, I can tell you, they also teach other pagan religions, including Hinduism, Islam. They promote all these things. What's not allowed to be discussed is Christianity. That's the only thing you cannot talk about. You could talk about Xmas. They'll talk about, they'll actually celebrate Xmas. They'll celebrate the gift giving. But you can't talk about Jesus Christ. That's excluded from Xmas. So, yeah, all these nations are anti-Christian. And what I'm saying is...
I've never thought of it in that context before, but you're right, aye.
Yeah, in essence. I'm talking about essentially here. And so the problem, and why I'm bringing that up, is that I see that BRICS is taking over mass media. In fact, BRICS just made another deal with, who was it? With Warner Brothers. They're basically, Warner Brothers just signed away its rights to India. I think it was India. And India can now reproduce any Warner Brother movie they want without consequence. Right. Yeah. And, this Sony pursuing not Warner Brothers, but yeah, them too. I mean, everybody, right? Really. Disney, but Disney, especially Disney, they've been after Disney. They've made some kind of backdoor deal or some kind of merger. I'm not clear on how that's going down, but I mean, you look at the Disney movies, and I mean, especially with Pixar, and the influence is already obvious there anyway to begin with. They've been after Paramount, so I mean, it's a real problem. I'm demonstrating here that Hollywood has promoted Islam in 30 Rock, both movies and the TV industry, for over a century now. But also, the whole anime manga thing has taken over. Indian movies, not necessarily Bollywood, but other kinds that are more Hollywood type, are now becoming prominent in the States and the American movie industry. So this is not just nationalistic pride of, well, we need to be made in the USA kind of thing. This is from a Christian perspective. What I'm saying is that a very anti-Christian entity is taking over mass media, one of the most influential things in the 20th and 21st century. And that's a pretty big problem. The grass is definitely not greener. I know a lot of people that are sick of the woke stuff are really happy about these American industries falling apart economically. But that just leaves them susceptible to a hostile takeover, and that's a problem.
Yeah. I'd like to say, though, if you're talking about Hollywood itself or the Hollywood industry, I did say before that see when an industry is full of narcissists and hedonists and perverts.
Right.
There are no Christians to begin with.
Yep. I mean,
even though you might say, or whatever, that it's run by a guy who's maybe got Jewish origins, even they people, they're probably no clean, living, decent people, aren't they?
Right.
If they're in that industry.
Yeah. And, you know, it's just, I feel, to go back onto this whole Jewish thing, I feel like they created a golem that they've lost control of, and it's kind of backfiring on them. I could be wrong, because now I think because of the whole Palestine-Israel war and how that's spreading out, it's become really it's become another one of these dichotomies where now you have to profess whether you're with Israel or Judea or Judaism or the Jews, or you're with Palestine or the Islam, you know. But my challenge to everyone, especially the content creators, especially the militant ones, that start foaming at the mouth and start yelling at you and block you immediately if you say anything about the Jews. My question is, where is Jesus in that conversation?
I think it's okay to attack Christians in this day and age. It's become apparent that even in Britain, Christians are definitely taking second place in a lot of the media and such, like, to the, I wouldn't say necessarily Islam, but to the Muslim world. And our Muslim friends seem to be very easily offended.
Yeah.
But we've been appeasing that crocodile for too long now.
And there have been groups that have been...
You know that saying? The Churchill saying?
No, it's no.
Appeasing a crocodile.
It sounds familiar. Did you use that one before?
You keep feeding the crocodile to try to keep it happy until you've run out of grub. And then it eats you.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Perfect. Perfect. Exactly, Mundo. Exactly. Well said. Yep. And that's exactly what we've been doing. I mean, there have been organizations that have been fighting all this stuff. For example, let me do the comic book industry. Early on, the comic book industry was uncensored, and then people immediately, and rightfully so, said, whoa, what is this crap? And so there was an organization that monitored it, a censorship group, the Comics Book Code. But soon after that, maybe a decade after that, give or take, the comic book industry itself took over the comics book, to the comic book code. And so they were self-regulating and still complaining about their censorship. And if you see some of the stuff that they put out, how raunchy it is, and more so, more overtly, decade after decade, yet they were still complaining. And where it is now in the 21st century, I mean, it's starting in the 90s. The 90s, things got really raunchy across the board. Yet they're still complaining. You got to wonder, what would things be like if there weren't those groups in place? Or again, with the movie industry, all these Christian groups that are complaining about this and that, and successfully getting things removed. Thank God they did that. Why I'm talking? Sorry, go on.
It's like anything else. It's market driven. I mean, there's a huge industry for pornography, right? Because men watch pornography. It's a supply and demand thing. See, no matter what they want to push, it's like that. They've redone the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs things, right? People didn't like it. People complained about it. Zegler, at Rachel Zegler, she's opened her gob and insulted a few groups of people, basically the audience, and the movie's dying on its feet. Now they're talking about no releasing it at all and sticking it in a cupboard and forgetting it, because they don't even want to spend. They really don't want to spend the money pushing it forward any further.
Right.
So it is very much audience or customer driven. If the customers don't want it, and this is one of the things we have to accept. If the customers don't want it, they will not supply it because there's no money in it. But the customers do want it, it will be there, right?
Right.
So
But
is it a reflection of the audience, or is the audience being forced to watch it? Because the audience just won't dig into their pocket to watch a movie they don't want to see.
right, and that's the key word there. And yeah, again, let me push back in the previous statement. Like, I mean, look at advertising. For example, McDonald's is the easiest one to pick on because they got tons of advertising, very successful jingle, dun, 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 dun. And again, like a Pavlovian dog, when I do that jingle myself, I start salivating just on a little jingle. So the conditioning, the advertising, it's a real thing. It's quite effective. It's successful. It does its job. And you'll see certain movies that are quote unquote blockbusters that start getting heavily advertised 1 to 2 years in advance before they even get released. I mean, they're making this movie and they're already advertising it. Why do they spend all that money in advertising? Because they know if they advertise, people will show up. So at that point, when people are conditioned to do something, is it really free will? Are they really choosing?
Well, they've got the free will. This is a chicken and the egg thing. They've got free will, but if they make it, whether it's a burger or a movie, right? If they make it look juicy and appetizing, people say, "Oh," or their children will say, "Oh, Dad, oh, Mum, going to take me to see that," right? But I don't care how good your advertising is, or how good your processes are, or how good your campaigns are. You could not pay people to eat dog shit.
Well, I've eaten at McDonald's as an adult, and like that's exactly what I was paying for years and years. The eat was dog shit. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I offended some McDonald's fans out there, but
you might consider it, but you went in and ate it, so you must have actually been able to swallow it.
Well, when I was young, I liked it, but when I was young, I ate candy, which now as an adult, I ate some of that candy. I'm like, what is this crap? So,
yeah.
But let me, speaking of which, I mean, to get up on the tangent, but since we're talk about an industry that's gotten away with crazy stuff. At first, it was a soybean thing, the soybean scandal. So, yeah, it was byproducts, and they were basically false advertising. They should have got shut down. Of course, they didn't. And then it was mealworms. KFC also. Yeah.
Exactly. The soybean thing's a strange thing because whether they knew it or not, the reason that they pushed soybean onto people, it was a big crop. It had a big output, if you know what I mean, from a crop. When you grew soybeans, you actually got a big return for your volume-wise for your money. So it was a thing that the industry liked producing because it was profitable.
It's a big money maker, soybeans, isn't it? And instead of getting reprimanded, next thing you know, soybean became a craze. It became trendy, as in the soybean burger, the veggie burger.
Yeah, because they told you it was good for you. It was full of it was this, it was that, it was full of protein. It had all these, but they never told you whether they knew or no. I don't know. They never knew that it was feminizing, basically. That it had these deleterious effects on men. Maybe they knew it, but we certainly didn't.
And not only that, where's this crop coming from? This money crop?
Well, poor people grow it in faraway places for very little cost. That's why one of the reasons there was so much profit in it.
Far East?
I knew it's grown in America and everywhere else.
Oh, really? Okay, I don't know. All right. Well,
it tended to come originally it came from the Asian world, and I don't think they actually ate that much yet, but people were looking for things. It's all profit driven. It's like they forced you to eat grains by advertising that it was good for you. Now they're saying that eating grains and seed oils and it's just no good for you.
Yeah.
But it was easy produced and it was cheap to produce in large volumes.
Yeah. There's a movie about that that's a satire that kind of makes fun of it. The Road to Wellville. It's one of the weirdest movies you'll ever watch, and quite raunchy, actually, but it kind of makes fun of what you just touched on, the whole oats thing and how it was pushed as a healthy thing to do when it's just really a moneymaker.
But most of these things they push it's to do with profit. It's like the industries that advertise, whether it's smoking, for 100 years they try to make you look cool by smoking. Cool people smoke, do you know what I mean? Tough guys smoke, all this.
The ladies, the flapper girls from early 20th century.
Pushed in the movies. They get sponsorship from tobacco companies to Chesterfields or whatever they were advertising in movies.
Yeah, grassroots. Even Disney was promoting cigarette smoking. Disney.
Yeah. Now, that's where the drive money into something and it can push it. Nicotine's addictive. So when people tried it, they get basically addicted to it. That's great, isn't it? Knowing full well that somebody gets up in the morning and they have got to have your product. That's a great thing to sell, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Let me get back to the whole getting offended thing. You know, as Christians and the whole censorship and so on, you know, the censorship that's taking place now, again, very much Fahrenheit 451, again, very anti-Christian. And this has been the standard for decades, for generations now, at the very least since the mid-20th century. But what's been allowed, just like in communist China, in essence, what's been allowed is Christian bashing. And that's gotten worse and worse progressively. And I, you know, I, pun intended. So the reason I brought up these organizations that successfully censored or blocked some of these things is because we need to be very active in that again, especially when it comes to all this grooming of children. You know, I got one of my, I'm working on my 5th children's book, by the way. I'm very happy about it. I don't want to release any information about it because it's not copywritten yet. But basically it's addressing the grooming of children, all this weird, crazy stuff. And it's being done in a way that's really, really cool, in a way that it's very realistic and everyone can understand. So I'm very excited about it. Can't wait to get that out. But yeah, these kids, I mean, yeah, you should see what these mobile gulags, these mobile devices, what these kids are being not only allowed to access, but being subjected to through push technology. It's a real problem. But also all the Christian bashing. They removed God, they removed Jesus Christ out of everything, but instead also supplanted that or replaced that with Christian bashing. I mean, like all these things, Conan O'Brien skits, and I mean the list goes. South Park. I mean, this is all grassroots stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a real problem. And let me show this next clip on the back of that.
Before you do press it, could I say a large part of the problem with the major religions is the scandals that have hit them. And by major religions, I'm talking about the Catholic Church, in fact, among others.
Yeah,
the whole England, in fact.
Yeah.
Well, they themselves have been grooming.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't.
And it's been going on for generations. So they've been their own worst enemies in that respect.
Yeah, let me just, since you brought it up, and I really want to get to this clip because it's important, and it's going to be timely, because I don't want to sound like an apologist for pedophilia or the Catholic Church. I'm not Catholic, and I'm sure as hell not a pedophile. But let me point out how much that issue has been addressed over and over and over again. That is the second biggest model when it comes to Christian bashing, and that's employed by Hollywood or by mass media at large. The biggest model is the whole Bible thumper, you know, the fanatic street preacher. That's the biggest thing that they use to Christian bash. Second to that is the caller. Whenever you see a caller now, we've been conditioned to instantly think pedophile, and that's not by accident. That is Pavlovian conditioned by Hollywood. Let's get back to that.
Think so.
Yeah,
sadly,
let me show this clip, and then we'll continue this discussion if you don't mind, because it's relevant. It's quite relevant.
Yeah, my brother. Yeah. Listen, what? You a born again Christian? Get the fuck out of here. No, man. It's just I just can't picture you. You know, being no born again Christian. I was there when you beat the bitch up. Now, no, don't get me wrong. I know you can find Jesus. Everybody can find Jesus. No, I love Jesus. I love Jesus. I love Jesus. Hello.
All right. So would you agree at least that the street preacher is a trope that Hollywood has used over and over and over again to Christian bash? Would you agree with that?
I'm trying to think of examples that you see, but the evangelists have got to be a soft target because they're the most obvious. If you're a lot of people's only experience of Christianity, if you like, in the real world, is evangelistic preachers standing on their soapbox telling you to shout, in fact shouting at you to seek the Lord and this and that and that. And that's true even in my home city. If I go into the city centre in Glasgow, the most obvious guy there is standing at the centre of the largest junction in the city, book in hand.
Yeah. I get you, and that's a good point. That's great. We're not talking about that. You're waffling. Okay. I'm asking you, would you agree? I'm sorry I'm being curt with you, but I just want to reel you back in. Would you agree that mass media's biggest trope, or at least we don't have to argue biggest, but a trope that it uses is the street preacher to bash Christianity? Would you agree with that?
That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure that I've seen much of it. You see more of it in the movies than, for instance.
Yeah, I've been subjected to
other religions. I would agree with that. Aye.
Yeah, I mean, I've been subjected to over 2 decades of this, and just a few years in, about 5 years in, it already became browbeating for me because I became so aware of it. But basically, the challenge came to me right around the turn of the century by another movie buff. He simply asked me about the cross when the cross is being shown in a movie. And this is a guy who, I'm telling you, he's a movie buff, fanatic about movies. But he was also a Christian theologian and very real about it. And he says,
I can honestly say, if showing the cross, it tends to be in a negative connotation when dealing with the people in the movies. Yeah, I've seen a lot more of that.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. Yeah. When he posed a challenge, he's like, what? Pay attention to which character is being introduced or what's about to happen when you see a cross. And sure enough, every single time, either a bad character, it was even the main villain, or something really bad was about to happen. So much so that I became somewhat prophetic as to who the main character, bad main character, and all. I knew it just by seeing the cross, and that it'll be like, oh yeah, this is the bad guy.
And is that a movie trope?
Yeah, and it got to the point where people could not go to the movie theater with me because I was compelled to point it out to them just for the sake of doing what I have to do. And they hated it. Like, you know what? Yeah, because I was ruining the movie for them. But but that was just one aspect. After a while, and especially lately, when I took it seriously and I wanted to do like PhD level research on it, and I created an entire research model, a quantitative one, on a certain list of symbols that are common and a certain list of terms that are common and how they're portrayed in Hollywood. When I started focusing on that, it's like, man. And then from there, of course, the ethics. And once you include ethics, it's like game over. Mm-hmm. So it's very real. I mean, the biggest trope, I'm telling you, the biggest trope is the street preacher. They're always showing a crazy loon that's like, Jesus, in a very negative light, like, oh my God, get away from me, crazy person, right? So that's a real problem. I mean, because
having never actually given it any consideration up to this moment, in fact, if I'd had it in my mind, maybe I would have seen a lot more of it. And I'm trying to think of movies that these people have been represented in. And I agree that it is often they're shown as cranks.
Yeah. I mean, I've already done some movie reviews where I pointed that out. But now that you're mindful of it, I bet you're going to start noticing it, and you're going to hate me.
That's the case, isn't it?
You'll be like, damn it, Nico, you ruined these movies for me. So, but the second one, of course, is the collar. The third one is the monastics, the nuns or the monks. They're usually portrayed as comic relief, but they're also portrayed as evil.
Often nuns are trouble in the movies, aye.
Yeah. And this is a real problem. What happens is a schema is established in people's minds. So when they first come into contact with these people, they automatically have it preconditioned that, oh, this is evil, this is a pedophile, this is a funny person.
But often nuns are portrayed as particularly harsh characters, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, it's just something to be mindful of, I think. And
I've definitely seen the comedy nuns, and also they're also portrayed as hard characters that don't have any warmth or compassion. More often than not.
Yeah, the evil. Yeah. So one of the openings was a animation segment. It was let's call it a cold start. Birds of Prey. It was a DC movie. The Joker's girlfriend. Basically, she's showing how she was. Yeah, she was raised in a Catholic school, and the nuns were horrible. They were paddling her, and she ends up like killing him or something. And it's supposed to be comical. I don't know. It was just a saint, and the background was completely red and menacing. It was just bad.
I've seen that.
Yeah. That was Evangelist. Well, I bet you got some stories. Give the gospel. Whenever you're feeling up to it, please come on up. Yeah, that's pretty much all the clips. I had some other things to show, some peripheral things. I kind of misplaced them, which might be fortunate because this ran a little bit longer than I anticipated. Wow, almost 3 hours. Time flies when you're having fun. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but that's fine. I mean, we pretty much. All right. Come on. Let me give you the link here. It's also pinned, but let me go ahead and give it again. Okay. So yeah, basically we just went through very briefly the 48 hours. And again, forgive me, it is a good movie as far as entertainment value goes, production value. But yeah, just be mindful you're going to be subjugated all kinds of racist stuff. It's going to trigger emotions, especially in the 21st century. You're going to feel a certain way. Yeah, and all this other, crazy stuff. But yeah, good movie otherwise. Whatever that's worth. Yeah. But then we saw some clips of another 48 hours.
But in this day and age, right, the movie tropes you see more often are the doofus guy, where men, are often represented as being white men in particular, as the useless one, where there's some pretty young lady who's a hero, and she has to deal with the dopey guy who can't do anything and is useless, and she's expert at everything, including kung fu and people twice her size.
Yeah. Even, and that goes far back. I thought that was something new, but that goes back at least, actually, probably in the beginning of, come to think of it, in the very movie. I mean, even if you look at Buster Keaton, for example, I know they have vaudeville backgrounds, but still, I mean, we're looking at stumbling, bumbling idiots that we're supposed to laugh at. Hal Roach, who was the two guys? Help me out here. The early guys did some silent film.
Lloyd. I liked Harold Lloyd.
Yeah, thank you. And also the mustache guy, Charlie Chaplin. All these guys, the Three Stooges. I mean, the name alone, the Three Stooges. So
that's the tradition of the clown, though, isn't it? The jester.
Yeah. So I mean,
the jesters were all men, weren't they?
Yeah, and then if you look at some of their movies or the shorts or whatever, you'll see the woman. Even though the women usually take a B role or a supporting role, sometimes you'll see the woman like grabbing them by the head and pinching their nose and putting them, their head in a vice. And so even there, we're seeing emasculation. Yeah, you can say it's a sacred comedy, the vaudeville, whatever, but we still see a pattern being established.
Well, definitely it's a pattern, because more often than now, men are being represented in a negative light, and that's just getting more and more the case. The representation of women is they're the heroes and all the rest of it, and the guys are always there as secondary actors, and they're causing problems.
Yeah, and just like black people that are out complaining about all this, thug culture being glamorized and and so on, there's a lot of women out complaining about all this. Like for Marvel Universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the nickname is MCU. So there's people complaining about that too. Thankfully. So, and I bring that up just to make sure we're mindful that we don't slip into, well, the woman is the problem, but mass media is the problem that are conditioning certain women that loathe themselves and therefore project it onto others.
These things tend to swing backwards and forwards, and you overcorrect every time, don't they?
Exactly. And that's what I'm worried about. And that's exactly what I'm talking about here. This forewarning of January 6th, this overcorrection. And this overcorrection we're being pushed to now. Now that Trump is president, is going to save the world. And everyone's talking, well, now that Trump's president, they're leaving out the Trump, but it's understood. Now we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Right. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And, even up before the U.S. elections, there was this word being used, rise up, for the conservatives, for the right now, not just the left. The right we're being called to rise up. Please be careful what you're falling for. I'm not saying. Sorry,
one thing I would say about Trump is he's always entertaining. Biden was never very entertaining.
Oh, God. I would disagree.
Trump he makes for great news.
Yeah. I would disagree. It was embarrassing too. But yeah, it was embarrassing too as an American. But yeah.
For me, as an observer, right, they've always got good cuts of him. Whether it's positive or negative, I'm not saying that I'm a supporter or I'm several thousand miles across the big pond, right? But on the news, Trump's great telly. He's always got some garbage to say. He's always got a quick quip. He's always got some wit to put down. He's got the, as we would call it, the gift of the gab, right?
Yeah. Let me clarify. I don't know if I mentioned when I was talking. Oh, we're talking about Biden. Yeah. So I want to make sure my audience is. When it comes to Trump, this is my theory, and this is when I first heard that Trump was running on the Republican ticket. I was like, "What the? Are you serious?" Again, I was in Greece at that time, being a libtard, helping the historical mass migration, which I'm glad I did that. It was a good learning experience and so on. And, doing my part to help my enemy kind of thing. So I don't regret that. But anyway, I was hearing about the elections back then. And when I heard that he was running for the Republican ticket, it was like, no freaking way. And then I saw these people getting mad online, like he was going to win. I'm like, you idiots. What are you getting upset for? This guy, this ass clown was never going to win, was my attitude.
He was a Democrat at one time, though, was it?
Yeah, he was I don't know about Democrat officially. Maybe he wasn't. I don't know. But definitely a liberal. You judge him by the
Democrats at one time.
He was a lifelong liberal. And all of a sudden, 2 years before the election, he's a Republican. And he built his career. If you watch any of his I started watching the Apprentice Celebrity. And I started that was my first time. I never liked Trump because he's a con artist. He scammed the U.S. Economic system with the Chapter 11 stuff. Yeah. So, decades before, he was a con artist, basically robbing taxpayers from the Chapter 11 stuff. So, at any rate.
Is that a tax code or something?
Yeah, it's bankruptcy.
Okay.
So he basically became filthy rich off of the taxpayer. So not paying his debts. And because of that, mass media was like, oh, you know what? You're a rich guy. You should run for president. For a couple of decades, he was mass media's hero to run for president. But then I started watching this Celebrity Apprentice. And at that point, this was a few years after, like I said, I was watching all this Christian bashing. And I started really hating Hollywood. And so around 2010, give or take, he was doing the Celebrity Apprentice stuff, maybe a little earlier. And I was like, man, this guy, I like the way he's handling this Hollywood crowd. And so I started liking him, started getting respect. One of the things he was pushing is how you carry yourself in public. You always carry yourself properly and all that. That was his biggest thing on that show. And then suddenly, a few years later, the guy that mass media is pushing for president is now running on the Republican ticket. And he's being completely publicly obnoxious, saying things like Rosie O'Donnell is fat and she's ugly. And like, what the hell is this stuff? Not even a kid says stuff like that. So instantly I was like, I knew where this is going. I was like, man, this guy is going to be the straw man for the white Christian man. He's doing this crap on purpose so he can do that. And so people will have something to hate on. And sure enough, here we are. People were talking about, there was literally, and I was using the label mass media Mooney intentionally, like, again, as a forewarning where people are going, like, this fanaticism of the left is going to take you to the point where you're a Mooney, where you're setting yourself on fire for your beliefs, your religious beliefs. And sure enough, Trump gets elected that first time, and some guy goes out some absolute beta male, and he sets himself on fire in front of Trump Towers before he even takes office. What the hell?
See people getting that excited about whether it be in support or being against a political to me, that's just insanity. I don't know how people get themselves so. I might see news reports about tax changes that upset me, right? I might see a thing, you know, on the news or on a podcast, and like the inheritance thing that's upset the farmers here at the moment. But there must be something wrong with these people.
Well, it's fabricated.
Obviously, if you set yourself on fire, you've got some serious psychological problems, right?
Well, again, yeah, it's fabricated. It's all the psychosis that mass media is in, I mean, for generations has put into our heads, but it's culminated, it's become more and more overt to the point where people are just now outright, well, yeah, I'm a Freemason. Even though they're not a Freemason, they're glamorizing Freemasonry. They're glamorizing the occult openly. It's a real problem. It's a real big problem. And that's why right now we need to be more, yes, be as clever as a serpent and harmless as a dove, but you still need to be active and vocal. You still need to get involved.
But it's okay to be involved. Yeah, if you actually do believe in what you're... Personally, from my point of view, right, there are none of the political groups in the... Maybe it's the belief, but there are none of the political groups in Britain that would have me out putting leaflets through their door, because I don't believe in them. They're all corrupt. There's none of them actually represent the people that they're supposed to be representing, i.e. us.
Thank you.
I don't think I would go out my way to help any of them, because they're all out to help themselves as people.
I completely agree. I'm waiting for a Christian political group. I still haven't seen one. And I know people feel the Republican Party is the one, but the Republicans also feel in corporations, which is equals oppression. They also push
business for the most part.
Capital punishment. I don't remember Jesus saying, you know, electrocute someone.
Well, surely they must represent their sponsors before anybody else, and they all seem follow the money's apt. Who supports them? Who is? And I know Trump got a lot of money just for the news reports. Trump got a lot of money for the public, for donations. So maybe he sees the people as his support, rather than big corporations and big companies that have donated, I don't know, millions in deals under the table. And the Democrats, it's an undeniable fact that they get huge money for the lobbying groups and such like. And I'm not sure that and I think it's because they thought they wouldn't get in, that the Republicans didn't get such a lot of that. I think maybe a lot of the big businesses thought they wouldn't get in, so didn't push them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Let me just say this real quick, and if you don't mind, we've been on for 3 hours, so I'm going to give you some closing thoughts. But before I do that, let me just say, again, I just want to emphasize this whole thing. You know, we are in different times because of media, because of the influence of the internet. We saw what we ourselves did thanks to what we were seeing on the internet. We were policing ourselves and each other because of that. So nobody at this point should want to deny its impact, its influence on us. And I'm saying that because I want everyone to keep in mind that all these dichotomies, left, right, Republican, Democrat, woman, man, white of color or European of color, or, you know, the list goes on, queer or Christian, kitty-lation, as if that's a dichotomy. You know, on and on. Please do your best to avoid falling into that trap, to giving into the emotions. Appeal, you know, pray unceasingly, keep your armor on. You know, fast, read your scripture, attend church. I know church organizations are, for the most part, corrupt, all of them across the board. We've seen that during the lockdown. But you're not there for the people, for the organization. You're there to worship communally God. We need each other, and that's where we find each other at church, okay? So if you deviate from that, you're going to suffer from it spiritually. And cut down on the internet if you can't I mean, I'm a creature of habit myself. I'm being a hypocrite here. But, yeah, do your best to cut down on the internet. Masturbation, the whole porn thing is a really, really big problem right now. I mean, it's even worse than that with the whole, what is it? What is that? I can't think of what it's called. Me Friends or Friend Me Now, or what is it? The whole Andrew Tate thing that recently got popularized. Anyway,
I was never that interested in porn. Motorbikes and machines were my
well,
thing.
this is worse. This is push button like combo stuff. Yeah, basically, I mean, it goes back to Snapchat. Like people were sending each other videos of raunchy stuff and just this whole online dating thing, but to the nth degree, we're just outright obscene. These devices are just completely corrupt. So please be mindful of that, what it's doing to you, and do your best to wean yourself off. I know I sound like an ass right now and a bit of a hypocrite since I'm on the internet all the time. But it's a problem that I do fight regularly, and I encourage the rest of you to do the same for these reasons. All right, Slim, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
Well, I've looked at my prayer. Would you like me to say a prayer for the show before I go?
Thanks. Yeah, amen.
The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. But thanks be to God, who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain in the Lord.
Thank you. God bless you for that. Thank you. I need to hear that. All right, folks. With that, thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Maybe Lloyd Day Young. We'll see what he says. If not, I will be doing a watch party again Sunday. But I might do another live stream before that, Friday or Saturday. I'll try to get another one in. And I'm also working on a short. So, yeah, thank you, everyone. God bless you. And I'll catch you in the next one.